The school bell rings, signaling the end of the day. Marika calls out to Kanata and asks if he is about to head home, suggesting they go together. Kanata agrees while other students look on jealous that his class has someone so cute in it. Marika realizes she forgot her bag and runs back to grab it. While she is gone, a boy at the window asks Kanata if he is her boyfriend. Kanata explains they are just childhood friends, making the other boy feel relieved. Marika returns to the hallway with her bag in hand. She notices the commotion and asks Kanata what all the fuss is about. A group of boys swarms Marika, asking her to go to karaoke or a ramen shop. She turns them all down, stating she already has plans. Kanata thinks about how his childhood friend is in a league of her own. Kanata reflects on how Marika is unbelievably popular. Other boys watch her from a distance, wishing they could date her. As they walk home, Marika sulks and complains that people keep staring at her chest. Kanata stays quiet, thinking about his hidden crush on her. Kanata feels miserable and compares himself to a bland NPC. He overhears other girls calling him plain and feels like he could die from being so unpopular. Marika points out a shooting star in the twilight sky and mentions a new ice cream shop. Kanata tells himself that a confession would never work out well. Marika comments on the rarity of seeing a shooting star at dusk. Kanata is gripped by the fear that confessing his feelings would ruin their long-standing friendship. Desperate, Kanata claps his hands together to make a wish on the star. The sudden movement surprises Marika. Kanata wishes he could understand other people's affection levels, just like in a video game. He imagines Marika with a full affection meter and a dialogue box asking if he waited long. The next morning, Kanata gets ready for school. He reflects on the strange wish he made the evening before. Kanata walks into the kitchen and stares at his mother. He is shocked to see a giant pink meter floating next to her face, realizing his wish might have come true. Kanata notices that even their dog Mamiko has a full pink meter floating above its head. He realizes both his mom and the dog are maxed out. Kanata heads out the door for the day. He walks down the street deep in thought about what those mysterious meters could possibly represent. Kanata observes that the meters do not appear for male classmates or strangers he passes on the street. Upon entering the classroom and offering a morning greeting, Kanata briefly believes the meters were just a product of his imagination. Kanata is stunned to see that every girl in the classroom has a meter floating beside her. Kanata panics as he confirms he has gained the love meter ability he wished for, noting that none of the boys possess one. Mikasa approaches Kanata to say good morning and asks why he is just standing at the entrance. Kanata reaches out to remove something from Mikasa's hair while noting that her meter is roughly half full, wondering if that is a standard level. As Kanata helps her, Mikasa's meter rises sharply and she blushes while thanking him for the gesture. Kanata recoils in shock at the rapid increase of the meter, while Mikasa asks what is wrong, leading him to claim it was nothing. Another girl sitting on a desk watches the scene with a clicking sound of her tongue. Kanata notices her meter is also at a moderate level. The girl glares and questions why Kanata is sitting on someone else's desk, causing him to apologize as her meter immediately plummets. Kanata concludes that the meters allow him to see how people feel about him in real time based on his actions. Marika's voice calling out to him from behind catches Kanata's attention, making him nervous about what her level will be. Marika greets Kanata with a bright smile, but he is horrified to see her meter is a dark, dripping mess with almost no pink left in it. Realizing the meter is super negative, Kanata freezes and barely manages to return the greeting as Marika looks at him with confusion. Kanata slumps over at his desk, feeling like his romantic prospects are dead because of Marika's negative meter. The school bell rings, echoing throughout the building as the day comes to a close. Kanata sits at his desk in a dark mood, wondering if Marika has actually just been tolerating his company this whole time. After school, Kanata becomes teary-eyed at the thought that they are only together because they are childhood friends. Marika approaches him and calls his name. Kanata tries to hide his feelings and says nothing is wrong. Marika notes that he seemed down all day and asks if something is bothering him. Marika expresses her desire to help him. Kanata is gripped by internal panic as he stares at the dark, dripping meter floating right next to her. Marika encourages Kanata to cheer up, telling him that she likes it better when he is energetic. From Kanata's perspective, Marika's smile looks intensely sinister. He screams, internally terrified by the sight of her infernal dripping meter. Marika asks Kanata if he is free to hang out. He frantically apologizes and insists multiple times that he is completely fine. Kanata ends up sitting on a park bench with Marika under the blooming cherry blossom trees. He questions how they arrived at this situation. Marika talks about being curious about the limited-time ice cream flavor they are eating. Kanata struggles to eat his own, overwhelmed by the fact that he is actually out with her. Marika asks Kanata for a taste of his ice cream. With his heart pounding, he feeds her a bite from his spoon. Marika licks her lips and happily remarks that the ice cream is quite good. Marika offers to return the favor and tells Kanata to open wide, holding a spoonful of her ice cream toward his face. Kanata's heart thumps violently in his chest as he reacts with a panicked shout to her sudden offer. Marika laughs and tells him she was only kidding before eating the bite herself. Kanata watches her, telling himself that he needs to prepare his heart for her antics. Marika smiles at Kanata under the falling cherry blossom petals and asks if he has cheered up a bit. Marika pokes Kanata on the nose and tells him she prefers him that way. Kanata blushes and claims she is cheating, while Marika laughs and says she would be worried if he didn't act like his usual self. Kanata is gripped by internal panic as he watches Marika act so enthusiastic despite the dark, dripping mess of her meter. He wonders what is going on with the reading. Kanata narrows his eyes in suspicion and begins to wonder if the meter is even real. As the sun sets, Marika tells Kanata she should be on her way home. Kanata agrees and tells her he will see her the next day. Marika waves goodbye to Kanata with a warm smile as they part ways for the evening. Later that night, Marika sits in her dark bedroom staring intently at the glowing screen of her phone. Marika scrolls through her phone looking at a photo she took of Kanata walking his dog. Marika blushes deeply and whispers Kanata's name while gazing at his picture on her screen. Marika sits hunched over in a room where every inch of the walls is covered in photos of Kanata. She wonders why he won't look at her the way she wants. Marika breaks down in tears on her hands and knees, crying out for Kanata to look at her. Her meter appears as a dark, overflowing mess representing the truth of her feelings. Marika clenches her fists in a crying fit and vows to make Kanata notice her. The meter is revealed to be dark and menacing because her love is so heavy that the gauge cannot handle the weight. Back at school the next day, Marika chats happily with a classmate. Kanata watches from nearby, sweating as he wonders what to do about her cursed meter. Kanata looks at his classmate Toyotomi and notices her meter is very low. He tells himself that even a low level is better than what Marika is showing. Kanata imagines Toyotomi attacking him for just being in her field of vision. He worries that his school life will be in serious trouble if things keep going this way. Kanata decides to try being more friendly with Toyotomi to raise her meter to a normal level. He pumps his fists and tells himself he has to make her affection for him at least on par with the others. Kanata jumps toward Toyotomi in the middle of class and shouts her name. Toyotomi is startled by the sudden outburst as she sits alone at her desk. Kanata suddenly announces that his favorite food is definitely curry rice and asks Toyotomi what she likes. She gets annoyed and tells him she never asked. During the second period, Kanata jumps at Toyotomi again. She asks what he wants this time, while he tells himself that they will be friends soon enough if he just keeps talking. Kanata excitedly says that he got a golden ticket for the first time. Toyotomi bluntly tells him that she does not want to hear about it. Kanata tells Toyotomi he will see her later. She watches him go with an irritated expression, wondering if he is being serious. At the start of the lunch break, Kanata spots another chance and jumps out to greet Toyotomi again. She looks exhausted by his persistence and complains that he is back again. Kanata suggests they work together for the next class in the AV room and offers to carry Toyotomi's things. She grits her teeth and tells him not to touch her stuff as her meter drops even lower. By the fifth period, Kanata approaches her once more. Toyotomi loses her patience and slams her hand against the wall, pinning Kanata against it. Toyotomi glares at Kanata and aggressively asks if he has an issue. Kanata stammers and tries to explain himself while shaking in fear. Toyotomi tells Kanata to stop pushing it and to quit talking to her, calling him a nobody. Kanata is left behind in tears, feeling completely rejected. While walking home, Kanata sighs and thinks about how trying to become friends failed. He passes by a small park and reflects on how much the love meter stresses him out since he cannot do anything about it. Kanata looks at the park's sandbox and recalls playing there with Marika when they were very young. Suddenly, he hears someone crying nearby. Kanata finds a young girl with silver hair and several piercings crying on the ground. She says her knee hurts and Kanata asks if she is all right. Young Kanata presents disinfectant and a band-aid to the crying girl. He tells her it is okay and that he will take care of her injury immediately. Mishiro asks Kanata if he is a pharmacist. Kanata laughs and asks her where she learned such a big word. Kanata finishes bandaging the girl's knee. He asks her if it still hurts and if she is able to make it home by herself. Mishiro yells that it still hurts and demands that Kanata help her get home. Kanata thinks she is being quite lively for someone with an injury. Kanata agrees to walk her home. Mishiro happily agrees and they head off together. Kanata watches the girl and thinks to himself that she bears a strong resemblance to someone he knows. They arrive at a house and Kanata asks if it is her home. Mishiro confirms it is and shouts out to her big sister that she has returned. A girl wearing an apron rushes to the door and calls out to Mishiro, relieved she is finally home. Kanata realizes the girl is Toyotomi. Toyotomi is shocked to see Kanata at her house and asks what he is doing there. Toyotomi bows and thanks Kanata for taking care of Mishiro. Kanata tells her that it was not a big deal. When Kanata says he should probably leave, Mishiro grabs his arm and clings to him tightly. Mishiro suggests that Kanata should stay and eat first. Toyotomi is surprised by the sudden invitation. Mishiro tells Kanata that her sister's food is delicious. Kanata hesitates to accept the offer. Toyotomi sighs and tells Kanata he can eat if he wants to, even though she is not sure what he likes. Kanata notices he is gaining some affection and decides it would not hurt to try staying. Kanata peeks into the kitchen and feels captivated by Toyotomi's domestic side. Toyotomi notices him staring and tells him to go away because he is being distracting. A plate of vegetable-filled curry is served for the meal. Kanata eats the curry and tells Toyotomi that she is an amazing cook. He thinks the meal is incredibly delicious and thanks her for the food. Toyotomi explains that her parents often return home late, so she is the one who handles the household chores and cooking. Kanata expresses his deep respect for her and says it is incredible that she manages all the housework and cooking by herself. Toyotomi blushes and quietly says that his praise is not true. Toyotomi wipes Mishiro's messy face with a cloth and scolds her for stuffing her mouth. Mishiro continues to eat and says the food is tasty. Kanata reflects on not judging people by their appearance. He realizes that while he thought she was scary at first, her true personality is actually very kind and caring. Kanata says it is time for him to head out and thanks Toyotomi once more for the meal. Kanata is surprised to find that Mishiro has fallen asleep on him. He notices that her affection meter has reached its maximum level. Kanata observes Toyotomi's gentle expression and is surprised to see her affection meter rising as well. Kanata thinks about how much Toyotomi cares for her younger sister, noting that she acts very differently than she does at school. Kanata thanks Toyotomi for the good meal as he prepares to leave. Mishiro suddenly grabs him and calls him her big brother. Mishiro tearfully begs Kanata to come back soon and claims that her big sister wants him to as well. Kanata is startled by the statement. Toyotomi blushes and looks away, saying that if Mishiro thinks it is a good idea, then it is fine. Kanata waves goodbye and asks Mishiro to let go of his arm. Toyotomi smiles and tells Kanata she will see him later. Kanata is shocked by the farewell as he walks away. Meanwhile, Marika walks home alone and thinks about how late it is getting. Toyotomi blushes and gives Kanata a warm smile. Kanata smiles back at her before heading home. Marika hides behind a pole and watches the scene in total shock, wondering what is happening between them. Kanata waves and says he will see her tomorrow, and Toyotomi shyly agrees. Marika can't believe they are together so late in the evening. Kanata walks away while waving goodbye, and Toyotomi watches him with a blush. Marika is stunned by the intimate atmosphere. Marika panics and wonders if Kanata has already become a live-in boyfriend. Marika grips the pole in a jealous rage and calls Toyotomi a thieving cat as her meter spikes. Kanata feels an ominous presence behind him and looks around nervously. Toyotomi watches him with a confused expression. The next morning at school, Marika sits at her desk and broods over what she witnessed. Marika continues to spiral over the fact that Kanata was at Toyotomi's house. Someone suddenly offers a morning greeting to the class. Kanata enters the classroom and waves a cheerful hello to everyone. Marika is startled to see him. Marika greets Kanata and prepares to ask him about the previous day, but she is interrupted by someone else arriving. Toyotomi enters the classroom and casually greets Kanata by his first name. Kanata smiles and greets Sayuki back. Marika is completely stunned by the casual interaction. Marika panics and wonders how they reached a first-name basis so quickly. Marika frantically asks Kanata how he knows Toyotomi. Kanata casually mentions that they became friends just recently. Marika sighs in relief, glad to hear they are only friends. Marika immediately imagines a scandalous scenario of the two together in bed. Her jealousy meter begins to overflow as she worries about them being more than just normal friends. Kanata asks if Marika is all right. He is worried because her love meter is steaming and looks unstable. A classmate named Kokona Mikasa watches Kanata from a distance and whispers his name. Kanata holds a distressed Marika while Toyotomi stands behind them looking annoyed. Kokona watches them and feels jealous of their bond, wishing she could be friends with Kanata too. Kokona recalls a previous encounter where Kanata touched her hair and reflects on the memory. Sitting at her desk, Kokona realizes she can't stop staring at Kanata and concludes that she is definitely in love with him. Kokona approaches Kanata and asks about the pen he is holding. Kanata shows her the pen, which has a small dog figure on the end. Kanata explains he bought the pen because it looks like his Shiba Inu Mimiko. He then asks Kokona if she owns a dog as well. Kokona happily says that she has a golden retriever at home. Kanata excitedly says he really wants to pet her dog. Kokona promises to let him pet the dog if they ever have the chance. The next day during a school break, Kokona decides to take her dog for a walk because of the nice weather. Kokona walks her golden retriever and hopes she might run into Kanata. Suddenly, Kanata appears walking his Shiba Inu and greets her. Kokona is shocked and wonders if this is a fateful meeting. She nervously tells Kanata that seeing him there is surprising. Kanata notices Kokona's affection meter rising rapidly and wonders why it is happening. Kokona looks at him with a gentle smile. Kanata asks if she was the one who named her dog. Kokona confirms that the dog's name is Chocolate, and Kanata remarks that it is a very cute name. Kanata adds that the name matches her cute personality. Kokona becomes flustered and shocked that he called her cute so directly. Kokona wonders to herself how he can say such things so easily and if he is naturally that casual. Kanata watches her with a confused expression. Kokona recalls a shoujo manga where the owners of two dogs enter a romantic relationship after their pets become best friends. She panics and wonders if the same thing is about to happen to her and Kanata. Kanata sees her affection meter skyrocketing once again. Kokona turns away in a state of high excitement. Kanata determines that he must be careful not to let her become too affectionate since his heart is already set on Marika. He steels his resolve to keep things from progressing further. Kanata decides to purposefully show a lame side of himself to lower her opinion of him. He asks for permission to play with Chocolate and then begins to run alongside the dog. While running, Kanata suddenly slams face first onto the ground with a loud thud. Kokona calls out to him in worry as he hits the dirt. Kanata starts crying and complains about how much his face hurts. Kokona watches him with a flat, cold expression and thinks that a shoujo manga heroine would never see a guy cry this much. Kanata thinks to himself that his plan worked perfectly. Kokona tells him to be more careful from now on as he maintains a sharp, focused inner dialogue about her emotional nature. Kokona suddenly lunges forward and clings to Kanata's chest, surprising him. Meanwhile, Chocolate pulls on the leash and tries to run off. Kanata asks if she is all right. Kokona confirms that she is okay, but her eyes are swirly and she looks completely dazed from the close contact. Kokona asks Kanata if he can hold her hand to prevent her from falling again. Her affection meter remains very high as she reaches out toward him. Kanata is shocked and frustrated that his attempt to act lame backfired. He realizes his plan failed completely and feels backed into a corner. Kanata decides to act indifferent and give Kokona the cold shoulder. He refuses to hold her hand, telling her that it is too embarrassing. Kokona thinks his shyness is incredibly cute. Her affection meter maxes out as she swoons over his reaction. Kanata is completely overwhelmed and confused by why her meters are rising. He panics and thinks to himself that he really does not understand girls. On the other side of the park, Marika finishes a run and stops to catch her breath. She takes a drink from her water bottle. Marika rests against a railing, noting to herself that she ran quite a bit today. Marika stretches and enjoys the peaceful weather. She reflects on how many people are walking their dogs in the park. Marika spots Kanata and Kokona in the distance. She is so shocked to see Kokona hugging Kanata that she spits out her water. Marika hides behind a tree and panics, wondering if Kanata has the same kind of relationship with Kokona. Kanata and Kokona sit together on the grass, laughing and enjoying the company of their two dogs. Marika is horrified by the sight and wonders what is happening. Marika watches them and thinks that Kanata always acts like he is trying to impress girls. Marika sees the happy expression on Kokona's face and concludes that Kanata is flirting with her. She begins to tremble with rage. Marika's jealousy meter becomes menacing as she glares at them from behind the tree. She angrily thinks of Kanata as a spontaneous flirter. Kanata suddenly feels an unsettling presence while he is with Kokona and the dogs. Kanata looks toward a tree in the distance and wonders if the person hiding there is Marika. Kanata sees Marika looking like a terrifying demon behind the tree. He is scared and wonders why she is so angry. Marika's affection meter has completely transformed into a scary Hanya mask with a long purple tongue. Kanata is horrified by the evolved state of the affection meter. He finds the situation deeply concerning as he holds his dog. Later that night at home, Marika lets out a long, heavy sigh while looking despondent. In her room filled with photos of Kanata, Marika screams in frustration while clutching her head. Marika cries and worries that another girl will take Kanata away from her at this rate. Marika reads a magazine that advises trying to pull if pushing does not work. She grins to herself, deciding that she needs to do something soon. The next morning, Kanata walks to school feeling stressed. He recalls how scary Marika's meter was yesterday and knows he has to do something soon. The sun shines on the school building as classes are about to begin. In the school hallway, Kanata spots Marika walking in the distance. Kanata looks stressed and wonders how he can finally get Marika to like him. Students in the classroom discuss that PE class is next. Kanata sits at his desk focused on dealing with the demon mask situation. Kanata pumps his fists with determination. He resolves to do his best to reconcile with Marika despite being afraid. During PE in the gym, Kanata stands on the court while panting for breath. Kanata notices Marika watching him from across the gym while she stands with her friends. The demon mask meter is still hovering beside her. Kanata looks determined and thinks this is his chance to show Marika how cool he can be. Kanata catches a pass during the basketball game and runs down the court to prove how serious he is. Kanata jumps into the air and completes a powerful slam dunk. Kanata wipes sweat from his face and wonders if Marika saw his move. His teammates are impressed that he pulled off a dunk in PE class, but Kanata is left shaking from the physical exertion. Marika stares back with zero emotion. Kanata notices that something is wrong with her meter as the demon mask drools purple liquid. Sayuki and Kokona's affection levels rise as they watch Kanata. Marika decided to put the pulling method into practice by maintaining a blank poker face to make Kanata fall for her. Kanata collapses on the gym floor in despair. A teammate asks if he is okay or if he has a stomach ache. The school day ends and Marika goes to the shoe lockers to get ready to leave. Kanata watches her from a distance and considers inviting her to walk home, though he worries she will reject him. Kanata nervously approaches Marika at the lockers. She turns around with a blank stare while the demon mask meter floats beside her. Kanata asks if she wants to walk home together. Marika is internally excited but maintains a neutral face and gives a silent okay sign, which leaves Kanata confused. While walking outside, Kanata points toward a cafe and suggests they stop for some new drinks. Marika gives another silent okay sign without changing her expression. Kanata wonders if that is actually meant to be an affirmative face. They reach the storefront of the cafe. Kanata and Marika sit across from each other at a table inside the shop. Marika slurps her drink while Kanata mentions how tasty his beverage is. Marika internally thinks about how much fun she is having on this after-school date. Kanata feels discouraged because they cannot maintain a conversation and starts to believe that she actually hates him. The following day, Kanata holds up a bento box with renewed determination. He acknowledges that yesterday was a failure and decides to win Marika over with his cooking skills instead. Kanata finds Marika and invites her to the bento he prepared. He explains that he made plenty of food for both of them. Marika contemplates her next move while an angel and devil version of herself argue in her mind. The angel wants to stick to the plan of acting cold and decline the offer, while the devil is eager to eat his cooking. The devil version of Marika brutally attacks the angel version. The angel tries to claim she is just doing her job, but the devil tells her to shut up. Marika accepts the invitation and says she might as well have some of the food, which makes Kanata happy. Internally, the angel version of Marika lies defeated. They head up to the school rooftop to eat. Kanata and Marika sit side by side against the fence while eating the homemade lunch. Kanata enjoys the meal and nervously watches for Marika's reaction. Marika remains expressionless, but her demon mask meter blushes and displays hearts as she eats. Internally, Marika is overwhelmed by how delicious the food is and professes her love for Kanata. However, her body begins to shake, leading Kanata to worry that she does not like the taste. Kanata looks at the remaining food and feels like he should just give up. He starts to cry and wonders what he should do now. Kanata reflects on how he has loved Marika since childhood and remains committed to becoming closer to her. Kanata calls out to Marika and asks if she would like to go on a date with him on their next day off. Marika is taken aback by the direct invitation. Marika celebrates the success of her operation in her imagination. She drools with joy as she thinks about the result. Sayuki finds Kanata and Marika on the rooftop and greets them both. Sayuki sits down directly next to Kanata, much to Marika's annoyance. Sayuki explains that she likes the rooftop because she can eat her meals in peace. Sayuki tells Kanata that she needs his help with Mashiro. She explains that Mashiro has been crying and asking when her big brother is coming over again. Marika is shocked to hear that Mashiro calls Kanata her big brother. Kanata smiles and says he would love to see the little girl again. Sayuki blushes as her affection meter rises. She asks Kanata if he will visit on his next day off and offers to treat him to a special meal. Kanata excitedly agrees because he loves Sayuki's cooking, but he suddenly realizes he already has a date scheduled with Marika. Marika pouts in a jealous rage while her Hanya meter begins to glow with a purple aura. Kanata sweats nervously as he senses the tension. Marika turns her head away and dismissively tells Kanata to do whatever he wants. Kanata panics and tries to apologize to her. The Hanya meter suddenly lashes out and delivers a powerful slap to Kanata's face. Kanata is sent sliding across the rooftop floor from the force of the hit. He realizes with a shock that the meter actually has a physical hitbox. Kanata wobbles as he stands back up to face the two girls. Marika and Sayuki both look at him with wide-eyed, shocked expressions. Kanata declines Sayuki's invitation, explaining that he has plans on their next day off. He has a large bruise on his cheek and blood dripping from his nose. A recap explains that Kanata successfully asked Marika out on a date, even though the Hanya meter physically injured him. Back at home, Kanata pumps his fist with determination. He resolves to do his best to make Marika like him and handle the Hanya during their date tomorrow. On the day of the date, Kanata and Marika arrive at the aquarium together, both looking very happy and excited. Kanata thinks Marika's outfit is incredibly cute, but is terrified of the Hanya meter beside her. He wants to hold hands during the date, but worries it might end up feeling awkward. Kanata decides to give his all today and suddenly grabs Marika's hand. He excitedly tells her that they should head out. Marika blushes and agrees to go. She thinks to herself that Kanata is being very forward today. Marika excitedly points out a mother seal and her child sleeping together. Marika mentions that she used to carry around a stuffed seal when she was little. Kanata smiles at the memory and thinks she is amazing and cute. They move to an exhibit with several penguins. Marika remarks on how cute they are. Kanata realizes there are a massive number of penguins and finds their jagged mouths quite scary when viewed up close. They walk under a large glass tunnel and observe a massive school of fish swimming overhead. Marika looks for pufferfish in the tanks and spots a porcupine fish swimming near the bottom. Kanata watches the sparkling look in Marika's eyes. He thinks she is just too cute as she enjoys the exhibits. Kanata imagines himself being bold enough to gently put his arm around Marika's shoulder. Kanata feels like a coward for not acting on his thoughts. Marika asks if something is wrong, but he nervously insists that everything is fine. They watch a shark swim through a school of smaller fish. Marika finds the sight very relaxing and Kanata agrees with her. While talking about how much he likes the round shape of the seals, Kanata accidentally bumps into a passerby. He immediately apologizes for the collision. A delinquent-looking girl yells at Kanata to watch his step. Kanata is terrified as she gets right in his face and demands to know why he isn't saying anything. Marika steps in between Kanata and the delinquent, ordering her to stay away from him. Kanata watches in shock as she holds her hand out to block the girl. The delinquent girl recognizes Marika as a second-year student from their school. Marika glares back at the girl while the other delinquent laughs at the coincidence. Kanata trembles with fear and begs Marika to stop. Marika finds his trembling cute and thinks he looks very cool while trying to intervene. Marika finds it wonderful that Kanata tries his best to protect her despite being physically weak. Her Hanya meter blushes while she watches him. The delinquent girl suddenly puts her arm around Kanata and calls him a good guy. She suggests that he should come along with her and her friend. The girl claims Kanata looks like someone who has never had a girlfriend as her affection meter rises. Her friend looks on with a disgusted expression and questions her taste in guys. Marika's eyes widen in anger. She decides to take action to make the aquarium trip more exciting. Marika approaches the two girls while hiding a secret notebook behind her back. She asks the older students if they have a moment to talk. Marika brings up an embarrassing story about the delinquent girl singing loudly in the bath and upsetting her neighbors. The girl is horrified by the reveal. Marika then reveals that the other girl was rejected by a member of the sumo club. She calls the situation pathetic, causing the girl to cover her face in shame and beg her to stop. The two delinquents cling to each other in fear, wondering how Marika knows such personal details about them. They call her a scary girl and feel like crying. The delinquent girls run away while shouting that Marika will regret this. Kanata stands confused and asks what that was all about. Kanata thanks Marika for getting angry on his behalf. Marika insists that Kanata was the one who was actually protecting her. Marika smiles brightly at Kanata and tells him that he was very cool. Kanata watches her with a flustered expression. They enter a new area of the aquarium where a large crowd is gathered around a massive tank. Marika is impressed by how amazing the view is. A dolphin pops its head out of the water as Marika leads Kanata towards some open seats in the front row. Marika watches the dolphins and thinks they are cute, while Kanata feels annoyed that the animals are making a spectacle of being so affectionate. A trainer waves at the crowd from the center of the pool. The dolphins suddenly leap high into the air and crash back down, sending a massive wave of water over the front row and soaking Kanata and Marika. Kanata and Marika stand there completely drenched from the splash. Kanata wonders why the dolphins are acting so wildly while the trainer watches from the edge of the pool. Kanata pulls a stack of towels and a change of clothes out of his large backpack. He tells Marika that he brought them just in case, and she thanks him, realizing why his bag was so heavy. Kanata suggests that they meet back at that spot after they have both changed into dry clothes. Marika is shocked when she realizes she will have to wear one of his T-shirts. Kanata finishes changing and waits for Marika with a towel draped over his shoulder. Marika calls out to him as she returns. Marika walks back wearing Kanata's oversized shark T-shirt and thanks him for the change of clothes. Kanata thinks she looks incredibly cute, while Marika internally savors the feeling of wearing his shirt. They stand together in front of the large fish tank, and Marika notes that it is almost time for their bus home. Kanata agrees that the day went by very fast. Kanata tells Marika to wait for a moment and runs off toward a nearby souvenir shop filled with plush toys. Kanata returns and asks Marika to hold out her hands. She looks at him with a confused expression. Kanata places a small seal keychain into Marika's hands, explaining that he bought matching ones because she liked the baby seals. Marika holds her hands together and tells Kanata she is beyond happy. The Hanya meter beside her starts to rumble and shake violently. Kanata is stunned as the Hanya meter suddenly transforms, sprouting white angel wings and a halo as it floats above the glowing meter. Marika smiles and promises to treasure both the seal keychain and his T-shirt. Kanata looks worried and wonders if this is actually a good outcome. Kanata and Marika exchange morning greetings. Marika asks if they should walk together, and Kanata happily agrees. Kanata thinks about how they have closed the distance between them despite the state of Marika's affection meter. A girl with blonde pigtails watches them from behind and plots something. In a flashback to their childhood, two boys at a playground take a teddy bear away from a young girl with silver hair. The boys mock the girl while she cries and begs for her bear back. Young Kanata suddenly shouts at the bullies to stop. Young Kanata confronts the boys and demands that they stop bothering the girl. Young Kanata tells the bullies they should be ashamed for picking on someone defenseless. The young girl watches him in surprise. The bullies are unfazed and one of them smacks Kanata hard in the face. Kanata's face becomes distorted from the blow and he cries out that he cannot see. The bullies drop the teddy bear and leave as they lose interest. The young girl approaches Kanata and asks if he is all right. Kanata smiles and gives a peace sign despite the bruises on his face. He tells the girl he is glad she got her bear back. Kanata pats the girl on the head and tells her everything is all right. The girl blushes and thanks him for his help. In the present, Kanata wakes up from a nap at his desk. He realizes that the date at the aquarium must have tired him out. Kanata thinks about the girl from his dream and hopes she is doing well even though he cannot remember her name. The teacher interrupts his thoughts to introduce a new transfer student. A girl with light-colored pigtails and blue bows enters the classroom. The other students begin to mutter amongst themselves. They remark on her beauty and wonder if she is an idol. Kanata watches the new student as she walks through the room and thinks that she is a beautiful girl. Hidaka Niino introduces herself to the class after returning from 10 years in Italy. She asks her new classmates to call her Niino. The boys in the room react with visible excitement to her arrival. The teacher tells Katami that there is an open desk next to him and asks him to help the new student. Katami is shocked and becomes very nervous about the situation. Niino walks to her assigned desk and greets Katami by name. She uses an Italian greeting as she settles in. Katami politely acknowledges her. Niino tells Katami that calling her Niino is fine. Katami introduces himself as Kanata in return. While sitting at her desk, Niino observes Katami and is confused because she cannot see an affection meter over him. She wonders why it is missing. Niino thinks back to other girls she has seen interacting with Kanata. She remembers that they all had visible affection meters with different patterns. She tries to figure out why he is different. Niino leans in close to Katami and asks if there is something on her face. Katami quickly looks away and says it is nothing. The school bell rings and Katami clutches his chest. He struggles to handle how beautiful he finds the new student. A girl in the classroom calls out to a friend named Marika to go eat lunch. Katami watches them as he prepares for his own break. Katami asks Niino if they should head out to eat. He feels relieved that their interaction seems to be going well. The students gather in the school cafeteria for their lunch break. They find spots at the long tables to sit and eat together. 2 bowls of ramen are placed on the table. Both students give thanks for the meal before they begin eating. Niino explains that she lived in Japan until she was 7, which explains her fluency and her skill with chopsticks. Katami tells her that he grew up very close to the school. Niino mutters to herself about how Katami hasn't noticed something yet. Katami laughs and says it would be cool if they had known each other as children. Katami asks if Niino said something a moment ago. Niino smiles and tells him that it was nothing. Niino asks Kanata if they can exchange contact information. Kanata agrees immediately as they both hold out their phones. Kanata notices the bear icon on Niino's phone. Niino explains that it has been her favorite character since she was little. Kanata feels like he has seen the icon somewhere before but cannot place it. After school ends, Niino stands at the front of the classroom while boys gather around her to talk. Kanata stands nearby and watches the interaction. The boys bombard Niino with personal questions about her relationship status and her type. Niino glances toward Kanata, who wonders if he should step in to help her. One of the boys invites Niino to join them for a gala orchestra. Niino looks flustered and uncomfortable with the group invitation. Niino suddenly grabs Kanata's arm and tells the group she is sorry because she already has plans. Kanata is completely shocked by the sudden physical contact. Niino looks at Kanata for confirmation that they are leaving together. The other students are surprised by how forward Niino is acting. Kanata tells Niino that they should head out and apologizes for making her wait. He feels overwhelmed by the situation while Niino prepares to leave. As they walk, Niino whispers an apology to Kanata for deciding to walk home with him without asking first. Kanata tells her that it is fine. Kanata tells Niino he will keep her on track so she does not get lost, and Niino thanks him for being kind. Behind them, the other boys express confusion over how the two of them are already so close. The two stop in front of a shop window displaying several teddy bears. Kanata asks if it is a general store and comments on how elegant the shop looks. Niino asks Kanata if he likes teddy bears. Kanata admits that he likes cute things in general but usually does not say it out loud because he thinks it does not sound manly. Niino tells Kanata that a person's preferences and their gender have absolutely nothing to do with each other. Kanata looks at Niino and tells her that she is right. Kanata mentions that he particularly likes Shiba Inu merchandise. Niino is happy to hear his thoughts, and Kanata says they should both be proud of the things they like. Kanata recognizes the park they are walking past. Niino mentions playing at this park frequently as a child, which surprises Kanata. Kanata develops a stomach ache and heads for a restroom while Niino waits for him. Kanata returns and sees 2 boys approaching Niino, giving him a sense of déjà vu. The boys assume Kanata is Niino's boyfriend and leaving Niino stunned by the encounter. Kanata explains he intervened to stop what looked like bullying, but Niino suddenly dashes into a hug. Niino tells Kanata he hasn't changed at all, which leaves him completely bewildered. Niino heads toward the restroom, but Kanata panics when she walks toward the men's room. Niino stops and turns around as Kanata tries to correct her. Niino asks Kanata if he forgot the fact that she is actually a guy. Kanata recalls helping a crying child with a bear years ago and realizes that the child was Niino. Niino tells Kanata that it has been a long time and is happy that he finally remembered her. Kanata stands in total shock as the story segment ends. A credit page for the translators is shown with a cat icon on a character. A girl named Sayuki wakes up from a nap at a table and is greeted by someone. Mashiro hugs Kanata tightly while he smiles. Sayuki looks on in complete shock. Kanata tells Sayuki she must be tired and shouldn't push herself. Sayuki apologizes for falling asleep, but Kanata reassures her that it is fine. Sayuki drinks some water while Mashiro stays attached to Kanata. Mashiro asks if Kanata stops by often, and he confirms that he does. Mashiro tells the pair they should hurry up and get married so they can live together. Sayuki immediately spits out her water in shock. Kanata starts wiping the water off Sayuki's face. Sayuki tries to question Mashiro, but Kanata agrees with the child's suggestion. Kanata casually states that the two of them will get married once they graduate. Sayuki is frustrated that he is also supporting the idea. Sayuki tries to clarify their relationship status and asks if they are even dating. She tells him that an engagement seems very unlikely to her. Kanata points to Sayuki's hand and asks if they aren't already engaged. A large diamond ring suddenly appears on her finger, leaving her stunned. Kanata looks hurt and asks if she forgot their engagement. Mashiro hugs him to comfort him while Sayuki tries to find the right words. Mashiro continues to hug Kanata. Sayuki panics internally because she cannot remember a single thing about being an item with him. Kanata stops the hug and smiles, admitting that the display was a bit embarrassing. Sayuki's heart races as she wonders if Kanata is actually being serious about everything he just said. Kanata asks Sayuki if they didn't promise to go out together and says they need to get ready soon. Sayuki is caught off guard by the request. Mashiro gives a thumbs up and tells Sayuki to enjoy her date since she is also going to see friends. Sayuki worries about leaving Mashiro behind, but the girl insists she'll be fine. Kanata puts his hands on Sayuki's shoulders and tells her they should get ready. Mashiro watches them go with a smug look on her face. Kanata and Sayuki arrive at the seaside. The sound of crashing waves fills the air around them. Sayuki realizes she is on a date at the ocean. She is surprised by the sudden change in location. Kanata suggests they go change into their swimsuits. He mentions that she seemed to be having a lot of fun yesterday, leaving Sayuki confused about what happened. Sayuki finishes changing and apologizes for the wait. Kanata is speechless because she looks stunning, which causes Sayuki to demand he say something before getting flustered herself. Sayuki blushes deeply while thanking Kanata for his compliment. They both decide to head out toward the water. Sayuki runs into the ocean with a big smile. She thinks about how she feels like she has skipped a lot of steps in their relationship. The two of them a hug by the water during sunset. Sayuki thinks that if this is a dream, she doesn't want to wake up. Sayuki suddenly wakes up in her own bed and realizes the beach trip was just a dream. She thinks the situation is way too cliché as she hears the birds chirping outside. Mashiro enters the room to call Sayuki for breakfast. Sayuki tells her she is going back to sleep and tucks herself back into the covers. Sayuki walks to school later that morning. She keeps reflecting on her dream and wondering why she had it. Sayuki feels vexed by her own thoughts. She wonders if she cares about Kanata more than she realized since she had a dream about them being lovers. Sayuki jolts in surprise when she hears a voice behind her. Kanata greets her and wishes her a good morning. Sayuki finds Kanata incredibly handsome and blames her dream for the shift in her perspective. When she stammers a greeting, Kanata asks if she is feeling unwell. Kanata gently places his hand on Sayuki's forehead to check for a fever. Sayuki's affection meter immediately spikes and begins to tremble violently. Sayuki panics at Kanata's closeness. He notes that she is a little warm before pulling his hand away and apologizing for his actions. Sayuki swipes Kanata's hand away and insists she is fine before walking away. Kanata is left standing in the hallway, confused by her sudden reaction. The school bell rings for lunch break. Sayuki holds her lunch box and considers inviting Kanata to eat with her on the rooftop. Sayuki clutches her head in frustration as she reflects on her behavior earlier that morning. She wants to find a way to apologize to Kanata properly. Sayuki spots Kanata and Chitos talking together with their lunch boxes in hand. She assumes they are planning to have lunch together. A classmate named Matsumi joins Sayuki and comments on Kanata and Chitos. Sayuki realizes she knows very little about either of them. Matsumi notes that the two are always together but says it doesn't seem like they are dating. Sayuki is surprised to hear this. Sayuki is shocked that they can be so close without being a couple. Matsumi suggests that Kanata might just be the type of person who gets close to people easily. Matsumi whispers to Sayuki that she is certain Chitose has a crush on Kanata. Sayuki is skeptical of the claim. Matsumi excitedly insists that Chitose gives off a love-struck aura. Sayuki starts to think seriously about the possibility. Matsumi realizes she needs to go buy her own lunch and runs out of the room. Sayuki watches her go. Matsumi shouts back a message of good luck to Sayuki as she leaves. Sayuki decides she will just eat her lunch in the classroom. She begins to wonder about the nature of her own feelings for Kanata. Sayuki thinks about how her dream from that morning actually made her happy and that she didn't mind the idea of them being together. Sayuki watches Kanata and Chitose laughing and enjoying themselves. Her heart races and she starts to tremble as a realization hits her. Sayuki suddenly rushes out of the classroom at full speed, startling two boys standing in the doorway. Sayuki apologizes to the boys she bumped into while running. The boys comment that they have never seen her look so desperate. Sayuki starts to acknowledge the realization she just had about her feelings. Sayuki reaches the door where Kanata and Marika are standing. She stops and tries to catch her breath after sprinting through the hall. Kanata is surprised to see Sayuki and asks her what is up. Marika stands beside him and watches her arrive. Sayuki blushes and asks if it would be okay for her to eat lunch with them. A brightly colored affection meter decorated with flowers appears next to her. Kanata agrees immediately and Sayuki thanks him. The three of them prepare to have their meal together. Sayuki and Marika look at each other with serious expressions. A tense atmosphere settles between the two girls. Kanata panics and shouts in surprise. He is overwhelmed by the sudden change in the situation. Kanata notices that the art and colors of Sayuki's affection meter have completely changed. He is confused by the new flowery decorations and wonders what is going on. The group sits down to eat. Kanata tries to talk to Marika while Sayuki remains focused on the situation. A carnivorous plant suddenly bursts out of Sayuki's affection meter. She thinks to herself that she refuses to lose to her rival. Kanata is terrified by the evolution of the meter. He worries that things are heading in a dangerous direction. The plant in the meter starts breathing fire and roaring. Kanata panics, wondering if this represents hate or some other unpleasant emotion. The narrative notes that Marika and Sayuki have officially become rivals in love. Both girls look at each other with intense determination. To Kanata's complete surprise, the two girls are suddenly laughing and enjoying themselves. He watches them shift from tension to joy in an instant. Kanata admits that he cannot understand a woman's heart at all. He is confused by how they went from being at each other's necks to laughing together so quickly. Kanata's friend calls him over to look at something. Kanata looks toward the school entrance and wonders if he recognizes the person waiting there. The students admire the pretty lady waiting outside and wonder who she is waiting for. Kanata tells his friends that she is there for him and runs over to her, leaving them confused about their connection. The lady shouts Kanata's name and Tackle hugs him. Kanata is shocked and shouts in surprise at the sudden impact. Kanata tells her to stop because everyone is watching them. She ignores him and says it doesn't matter. Kanata's friends watch from the school window and wonder if she is his girlfriend. Kanata begs her to let go and asks how she is so strong while she claims it is the physical power of love. The lady happily announces to everyone that she is his girlfriend. Kanata immediately shouts that she is absolutely wrong. Kanata explains to his friends that the person is actually his older sister. Tsubasa Katami introduces herself to the group and thanks them for taking care of her brother. Kanata asks her why she showed up at his school. Tsubasa explains she brought an umbrella because it was supposed to rain later. Kanata points out that it is currently completely sunny out. Tsubasa waves goodbye and tells Kanata to come home quickly. Kanata says goodbye as he prepares to head out. Kanata's friends admit to being jealous and think he is a winner at home. Kanata tries to tell them that they probably have the wrong idea. As they walk home, Tsubasa clings to Kanata's arm. Kanata tells her she is walking too close and making it difficult for him to move. He then starts to ask her a question. Kanata asks if Tsubasa has gotten used to living alone yet. She pouts and claims visiting him is her privilege as an older sister. Kanata notices her affection meter looks like a specialized gauge. Tsubasa begins crying and admits that she was actually incredibly lonely living by herself. Kanata realizes this is the reason she has been coming over so much. Tsubasa denies her loneliness and claims she was only worried because Kanata is bad at housework. Kanata recalls her own poor cooking skills and doubts her excuse. She then suggests they should just get married, but Kanata refuses. Tsubasa is shocked and asks if he would ever consider her being his wife. Her meter begins to shake and spike as Kanata gives her a direct no. Tsubasa asks Kanata if he has a girlfriend. He nervously says he doesn't, then worries he made the wrong choice in how he answered. Tsubasa concludes that he must already have someone he likes. She pressures him with more questions while her gauge spins wildly. Kanata is confused by her intensity. Marika calls out to Kanata. Tsubasa is still pestering Kanata for the details using old slang which he finds embarrassing. Marika greets Kanata and asks if he is heading home. A meter next to her shows a strange purple substance. Tsubasa pops out from behind Kanata to greet Marika. The two girls reunite happily and hold hands while squealing with excitement. Tsubasa turns to Marika and asks if she can guess who Kanata has feelings for. Her gauge shakes as Kanata tries to stop her. Marika develops a menacing aura and asks Kanata who he likes. Kanata panics as she refuses to believe his denial. Marika changes the subject and asks if she can visit Kanata's house. She holds up a box and explains she wants to thank his mother for a book she borrowed. Kanata agrees and says his mother would be glad to have her over. Both Kanata and Marika look happy while Tsubasa watches them with concern. Tsubasa watches the interaction with suspicion and thinks that something isn't right. The group arrives at Kanata's house. Kanata greets his mother and Marika politely introduces herself. Marika presents her gift to Kanata's mother as a thank you. The mother invites her to join them for a meal and Marika happily accepts. Kanata and Tsubasa sit at the dining table waiting for the food. Tsubasa looks disinterested. In the kitchen, the mother suggests Marika should go sit down, but Marika insists on helping out with the preparation. Tsubasa asks Marika if she is acting like a wife. Marika laughs at the suggestion. Tsubasa gets annoyed and shoots a spitball at Kanata through a tube, causing him to cry out in surprise. Tsubasa whispers to Kanata that something about Marika has been bothering her lately. Kanata replies that he has known Marika since childhood and thinks she is just a very nice girl. Tsubasa credits her woman's intuition and teases Kanata for having no feminine charm. Their mother announces that the food is ready. Tsubasa suddenly puts Kanata in a rough headlock while shouting at him as they prepare to eat. Marika takes a drink while Kanata watches her. He thinks about how she used to seem kind to him, but the strange purple substance on her affection meter must have a hidden meaning. Marika offers Kanata a bite of her cake and tells him to open up. Kanata happily accepts the food while thinking she is cute, but Tsubasa watches the interaction with a look of pure shock. Everyone at the table finishes their meal and gives thanks together. They talk about how delicious the food from their favorite store was. The view through the window shows the sky turning dark and cloudy as the day progresses. Kanata looks at the window and tells the others that the weather is getting pretty bad. He notes that it has started raining very heavily outside. Kanata checks a weather warning on his phone that says the heavy rain will last until the next morning and is dangerous to go out in. Marika looks worried and wonders what she should do about her situation. Tsubasa suddenly suggests that Marika should just stay over for the night. Both Kanata and Marika are completely shocked by the sudden proposal. Marika asks if it would be a big bother for her to stay. The mother reassures her that it is completely fine while Tsubasa and Kanata react with visible concern. Tsubasa looks out at the rain while the mother suggests that Marika should go take a shower. The mother asks Tsubasa to lend Marika some clothes for the night. Tsubasa worries about letting Marika stay and vows to keep a close eye on Kanata. In his own mind, Kanata remembers their last sleepover in kindergarten and imagines them sleeping in the same bed again. Marika sits in the bathtub with a rubber duck and looks down thoughtfully while she relaxes. Tsubasa tells Marika through the door that she is leaving some clothes out for her. After Marika thanks her, Tsubasa suddenly asks if she likes Kanata, causing Marika to splash in surprise. Marika blushes intensely and asks if her feelings are really that obvious to tell. Tsubasa admits they are easy to see and apologizes for bringing up such a sudden question. Marika covers her face in embarrassment and admits she has liked Kanata since they were children. Tsubasa asks exactly how long ago it started. Tsubasa wishes Marika good luck, but internally she resolves to never let her brother be taken away. Marika remains in the bath and vows to try her best. Tsubasa finishes the conversation and prepares to leave the room. She accidentally bumps into Marika's school bag, causing several items to spill out onto the floor. The contents of the bag are revealed to be a custom slipper, set, a small stuffed doll, and an acrylic stand, all modeled after Kanata. Tsubasa is terrified by the discovery of the handmade merchandise. Marika glares at her from behind the door with an intense expression. A recap shows that Kanata's sister has now discovered the collection of homemade goods Marika keeps in her bag. Tsubasa trembles with fear as she asks Marika for an explanation regarding the items. Marika's mind goes blank and she stammers while trying to respond. Her affection meter boils over as she grows increasingly nervous under the pressure. Marika suddenly claims the items are a birthday surprise since Kanata's birthday is coming up soon. Tsubasa agrees with a flat, uninterested tone. Tsubasa apologizes for looking through the bag and hands Marika a towel. She tells Marika to dry off while they finish up. Tsubasa shuts the door and promises to keep the secret to herself. Once she is alone, Tsubasa reacts with total shock and screams in frustration over what she just witnessed. Tsubasa struggles to process why someone would make those kinds of goods for a birthday. She realizes Marika's love is far too intense and decides she has to protect Kanata herself. Marika dries her hair and thinks about the conversation. She feels pleased that Tsubasa was supportive and even complimented her idea. Marika smiles happily and assumes that Kanata must also be an idol to Tsubasa just like he is to her. Marika dries herself with a towel and thinks about how happy she is to have a friend like Tsubasa. The scene transitions to the outside of a local shop. Tsubasa relaxes in a cafe and receives a text from Marika. The message thanks her for the stay and invites her to Marika's house as a gesture of gratitude. Tsubasa is unsure about the invitation. Tsubasa imagines Marika with a sinister look threatening to end her. Looking at her phone, Tsubasa panics and wonders if Marika really intends to hurt her. Tsubasa envisions Marika as a violent girl holding a spiked club. She worries that Marika wants to eliminate her because she knows her secret. She decides to reject the invitation by claiming she has to study. Tsubasa tries to study at the cafe but finds it impossible to focus. She groans in frustration. Through the window, Tsubasa sees Kanata and Marika walking together. She notices Marika's affection meter is filled with a strange purple substance. Tsubasa watches them closely and sees Kanata laughing happily. She concludes that their feelings for each other must be mutual. Tsubasa feels conflicted. She thinks she could have supported the pair if she hadn't seen the homemade items in Marika's bag. Tsubasa shudders at the thought of the two high schoolers together. Tsubasa spots Marika and Kanata entering the cafe and tries to hide. She realizes she has been spotted. Marika and Kanata walk up to Tsubasa. Marika greets her cheerfully while Kanata is surprised to see her. Tsubasa forces a greeting in a high voice. The three of them sit together at a table. Tsubasa feels physically sick from the awkwardness. Kanata goes to place their order, leaving the two girls alone. Marika gives Tsubasa a smug look and asks if she saw the message. Tsubasa sweats and tries to make an excuse about her busy schedule. Marika asks Tsubasa if she will come over for a sleepover or if she simply doesn't want to. Tsubasa tries to find an excuse but fails. Tsubasa realizes she cannot turn the offer down without looking like a jerk. Kanata returns with the drinks and is shocked to hear his sister is visiting Marika's house. Marika puts her arm around Tsubasa and tells Kanata that their plans are just a girl thing they do together. Marika decides to call her mother to see if the sleepover can happen that very day. She looks incredibly excited about the possibility while Kanata watches in surprise. Kanata finds his sister's behavior suspicious and asks if she is acting strange today. Tsubasa denies his claim while looking nervous. Marika returns and happily announces that her mother gave the okay for the sleepover. She pulls Tsubasa into another hug while Kanata looks on. As Marika holds her close, Tsubasa's internal thoughts are a desperate cry for help. Marika is thrilled to be getting closer to Tsubasa. Kanata cries in the background because he is jealous of their friendship. The girls sit on the sofa at Marika's house after finishing a meal. Marika says the effort was worth it and Tsubasa compliments the food. While Marika sips tea, Tsubasa observes her polite manners and nice home. She thinks that Marika seems like a beautiful young lady from a good family. Tsubasa tells Marika that she would definitely be popular with boys. Marika laughs and claims that it couldn't possibly be true. Marika's expression turns dark as she thinks about how Kanata has never looked at her that way. She shakes while holding her teacup. Marika suggests they move the conversation to her bedroom. Tsubasa follows her nervously, hoping the room is normal. Tsubasa enters the bedroom and finds the walls covered in photos and posters of Kanata. She reacts with immediate horror at the sight. Tsubasa points at the shrine-like room and asks Marika for an explanation. Marika looks back at her with a confused expression. Marika looks puzzled and explains that her room is simply a shrine for her favorite idol. Tsubasa is shocked to hear her brother described as an idol. Tsubasa shouts that she is just a bit of a brother complex, while Marika wonders if Kanata has automatically become an idol to his sister as well. Marika locks the door and pulls out a VR headset. She tells Tsubasa that they are going to get started, which makes Tsubasa worry about what is coming next. Tsubasa puts on the headset and waits while a loading screen appears in her field of vision. The VR display shows various childhood photos and videos of Kanata. Tsubasa wonders where Marika managed to find so much homemade footage of her brother as a child. Tsubasa watches a video of young Kanata calling for his big sister and finds him adorable. Suddenly, the VR screen cuts to static and disappears. The VR environment changes to a nighttime city view with a silhouette of two people standing on a rooftop. An older version of Kanata wearing a suit appears in the VR and presents an engagement ring while confessing his love. Tsubasa is completely overwhelmed by the virtual proposal. Her affection meter spins out of control as she feels an intense surge of emotion. Marika watches with a satisfied smile while Tsubasa lies on the bed trembling under the influence of the VR headset. The next morning, Tsubasa returns home wearing a Kanata fan t-shirt and carrying a light stick and a heart-shaped fan with his face on it. Kanata is shocked by her new outfit and exhausted appearance. The narration notes that Tsubasa has changed significantly since the sleepover. Kanata asks if she is okay because she is groaning as she walks. At school, Marika is surrounded by people and remains as popular as ever. Kanata watches her from a distance. Kanata struggles with low self-esteem and cries as he thinks about how average he is compared to Marika. He worries that he looks like a background character. Kanata looks at her recruitment poster for student council officers. He thinks about wanting to become a man who is worthy of Marika and wonders what he should do. Kanata imagines himself sitting on a throne wearing a crown with Marika standing by his side as his queen. He thinks that joining the student council might be a good way to elevate his status. Kanata arrives at the student council room door and knocks while announcing himself. He feels nervous and wonders if he will even be accepted, but a voice from inside tells him to wait for one moment. The door opens to reveal two girls who look down at Kanata. One has her blonde hair in buns and the other has dark hair with blue highlights. The girl with the buns recognizes Kanata from a previous encounter. Kanata is terrified to realize that these two seniors are the same intimidating girls he met before and wonders why they are in the student council. The bun girl puts her hand on Kanata's shoulder and calls him a cutie, asking if he came specifically to see her. Kanata flusters and explains that he only came because he saw the recruitment poster. The other girl notes how loud the group is being. Kanata looks past them and wonders if there is another person further back in the room. A girl with very long black hair and glasses stands in the background holding a book. Mao refers to her as Rika and Kanata wonders who she is. Mao informs Kanata that the girl in the background is actually the student council president. Kanata reacts with visible shock at the revelation. Rika asks Kanata what he needs from the student council. Kanata thinks to himself that she is the perfect archetype of a beautiful glasses-wearing senior that all the boys admire. Rika introduces herself as a third-year student along with Hinami and Mao. Kanata introduces himself as a second year and bows politely to the group. Kanata worries about the school's future if these intimidating seniors are actually the ones in charge of the student council. Rika asks Kanata for his reason for wanting to join the student council. Kanata stammers as he tries to find an answer while noticing that Rika's affection meter has a traditional Japanese floral design. Kanata admits he cannot tell the real reason. Mao tells him to address Rika as president instead of by name, while Hinami grabs Rika's shoulders and asks if Kanata knows something she doesn't. Hinami laughs and suggests that Kanata joined because he liked her and decided to follow her. Rika immediately dismisses the idea as absolutely incorrect. Kanata admits that it is difficult to explain his motivations. In the background, a small bear icon reacts with visible shock to the situation. Katami declares he joined to become a better man, but his seniors tell him he should have used a reason that benefits the school. The president stands trembling in silence, making Katami worry that he gave a strange answer. Rika's meter spikes as she calls his reason great motivation, which surprises Katami. Rika explains that Katami must pass a test to be accepted, a rule the other members do not remember following. Katami enthusiastically accepts any challenge while the other seniors watch his intense reaction with confusion. Rika warns that student council work is physically demanding and asks if Katami is truly prepared. The test begins on the outdoor grounds as Katami starts his first trial. Katami exerts himself by dragging a heavy tire across the field. Marika hears Katami's shouting from her classroom and looks out the window to see what is happening. Marika identifies the student council members with Katami and wonders why they are together. Katami collapses against the tire and questions the manga-like nature of the test, but Rika tells him there is more work to do. Katami struggles through more physical challenges while his seniors watch him with disbelief. Katami lies face down on the floor and admits he has reached his limit. While cleaning up the storage room, Katami asks about the meaning of the physical tests, while Rika tells him it is almost time to leave. Katami panics when a hand reaches out from Rika's meter and locks the door. Katami rattles the door and panics when it will not open. He tells the president that they are both trapped inside the storeroom. Katami holds his head in distress as he realizes they are caught in a classic high school trope. He worries about the implications of being trapped in a gymnasium storeroom with a member of the opposite gender. Rika breaks down in tears and expresses disbelief at being trapped with a boy. She wonders if Katami is going to do something inappropriate to her, leaving him completely baffled. Rika continues to cry and asks if Katami intends to have a mature manga-like encounter with her. Katami desperately tells her to stop saying such things and insists that is not the situation. Katami tries to get Rika to calm down while reflecting on how much her personality has changed since their first meeting. Rika grabs her own shoulders while trembling. Rika's affection meter produces two large muscular arms that begin beating taiko drums. The noise is extremely loud and causes Rika to scream in distress. Katami observes the meter and wonders if it is acting on its own. He notices a white hand growing from the meter and remembers seeing it near the door lock earlier. Katami's heart races as a realization hits him. He concludes that the student council president's meter is actually moving on its own accord. Marika walks through the school hallway after class and sighs with exhaustion. She thinks about how Kanata's new schedule will change things for them. Hinami and Mao walk together and discuss what might happen to Kanata now that he has joined them. Hinami laughs and jokes that Kanata and Rika might be hanging out in the gym storeroom together right now. Mao finds the idea amusing while Marika overhears them from the background. Marika stands perfectly still in the middle of the hallway after hearing the seniors' conversation. Marika stares ahead with a blank expression as she processes the possibility of Kanata being alone with the president. Marika panics and wonders what exactly is happening between Kanata and the president in the storeroom. Marika sprints down the hallway at full speed. She thinks to herself that she does not like the direction this situation is taking. Kanata is confused because he thought the door was broken. Behind him, the president is still panicking loudly. He looks closer and realizes that the white hands coming from the meter are actually holding the door shut. Suddenly, he hears Marika's voice calling out to him from the hallway. He tries to pull on the door while Rika continues to struggle. Marika stands outside the door and asks if he is inside. Kanata confirms they are trapped and asks her if she can open it from her side. Marika sees the key left in the door and realizes it isn't actually locked. She wonders what could be happening on the other side. She tells Kanata she will count to 3 and they should both pull at the same time to open it. Marika rips the door open with massive force. Kanata is thrown back in shock by the sudden movement. Kanata comments on how strong Marika is and suggests the door was just old while the president looks completely flustered. Rika fixes her glasses and tries to regain her composure by thanking Marika. Kanata thinks it is far too late for her to act cool after her earlier panic. Kanata thanks Marika for saving them. Marika says she was just worried for his safety but secretly decides she shouldn't let him spend time alone with the president. Marika suddenly asks if she can also join the student council. Both Kanata and the president are caught completely off guard by the request. Kanata asks why she wants to join so suddenly. Marika looks away and says it is just because of the timing. Marika looks at him and says she wants to work hard alongside him. Kanata is very happy to hear her words. Kanata points out that there are tough physical tests to get in. He looks at Marika's meter and notices it is acting strangely, making him doubt her true intentions. Rika adjusts her glasses and announces that she will let Marika join. Kanata is shocked that she was accepted without any of the tests he had to pass. Rika tells Marika that she looks forward to working with her starting the next day, and Marika happily agrees. Kanata is left wondering what happened to the entrance exams he had to take, while Rika privately thinks about how precious Marika is. Rika says she will report the damaged door before heading home. Kanata worries about how the next day will turn out while looking at the broken doorway. The next day arrives. Marika looks determined and thinks about how she needs to protect Kanata from the strange women on the student council. Rika stands at the front of the room and begins a presentation on disaster prevention training. The presentation covers how participants will simulate a major earthquake and practice setting up evacuation shelters and preparing meals. Rika explains that this new training program will be implemented starting this year. Kanata and Marika listen to the details. Rika announces that she is assigning Kanata and Marika to support the other students during the training. Kanata reacts with surprise. Marika maintains a very serious expression while imagining herself and Kanata in side-by-side sleeping bags during a sleepover. Kanata asks her if the job is too sudden for her. Rika tells the pair she will be supporting them and also relying on other committees for help. Marika feels uneasy about the upcoming event. A handmade disaster prevention handbook is distributed to the students. Marika finds the cover design very cute. The day of the disaster prevention training officially begins at the school. The students gather inside the gymnasium and exchange morning greetings. Mikasa-san arrives in her tracksuit and talks to Kanata. He explains that he joined the student council the previous day and says he is happy to be working with her. Mikasa-san blushes heavily as her affection meter spikes. Kanata thinks about how they are still as close as they have always been. Kanata asks about the older students who look like delinquents, and Rika identifies them as Hinami and Mao. Marika watches the friendly interaction between Kanata and Mikasa in silence. Marika tells herself that she needs to remain cautious of Mikasa as well. She notes that Kanata and his friends are assigned to the second-year section today, while the third years will be handled on a different day. Rika stands in her tracksuit and prepares to lead the group through the general flow of the training session. The training schedule includes setting up a temporary tent, assembling a cardboard bed, and then preparing a dinner of curry rice. Kanata tells Kokona that the upcoming sleepover is starting to get exciting, and she shares his enthusiasm. Rika brings out a large, heavy bag and tells the students they will practice assembling the equipment. Kanata asks for instructions on how to put everything together. The tent pops open instantly as Rika spreads it out, which shocks Kanata. She asks him to help her hold the structure in place. Rika encourages Marika and Kokona to give it a try. Both girls are happy to find that setting up the equipment is actually very simple. Marika and Kokona agree to call each other by their first names while they work together. They finish with the tent and prepare to move on to the cardboard bed. Marika observes Kokona and begins to wonder about the nature of her relationship with Kanata. Marika is consumed by anger as she remembers seeing Kanata and Kokona hugging. She approaches Kokona and says she has something to ask her. Marika tells Kokona that she saw her hugging Kanata out in the open recently. Kokona is caught off guard and blushes intensely. Kokona recalls an incident where her dog pulled her into Kanata and explains that she was actually being dragged by the arm. Marika listens to the explanation about the walk. Marika is still frustrated and thinks it sounds like Kokona was being very forceful with him. Kokona thinks about how her dog is quite large while Marika remains unconvinced. Marika stares into the distance with a dark expression and tells herself there must be a mistake. Kanata calls her name from nearby. Kanata works inside one of the tents while Rika pokes her head in to check on his progress. Outside, Marika watches their silhouettes through the tent material and sees them standing very close together. Marika looks at the tent and sees the silhouettes of Rika and Kanata leaning close together as if they are about to kiss. She reacts with immediate shock to the sight. Marika gasps in horror at the silhouette while Kokona asks her what is wrong. Inside the tent, Rika and Kanata are simply working together to install a lantern on the ceiling. Rika notes that it is difficult to hook into place, and Kanata is impressed by her competence. Kanata and Rika step out of the tent. Kanata asks Marika and Kokona how their work is going. Rika thanks them for the help and says she will go check on the other students. Marika stands with a dark, menacing aura while her affection meter grows large, muscular arms that crack their knuckles. Kokona watches her in total terror. Marika asks Kanata with a terrifying expression if he can explain exactly what he was doing inside the tent. Her affection meter continues to grow, intimidating arms behind her. Kanata whispers to Kokona and asks what Marika's problem is. Kokona shouts that she should be the one asking him what he was doing alone with the president. Marika grabs Kanata's shoulder and asks to speak with the president. Rika pokes her head into the area and asks what all the noise is about. Marika confronts Rika and asks her to explain exactly what happened when she was trapped in the gym with Kanata. She recalls the president's earlier panicky behavior. Rika adjusts her glasses and stoically tells Marika that what happened is a secret. Marika is stunned by the response. Kanata whispers to Rika and asks why she is making the situation sound so suggestive. Rika replies that she wasn't trying to imply anything. Marika and Kokona stare with dark, empty eyes as Rika leads Kanata away to finish preparing for the arrival of the students. The school bell rings as the disaster prevention drill officially begins. Kokona tells Kanata he did a good job during the first part of the drill. Kanata admits that he was incredibly nervous and his stomach hurts. Kanata whispers to Kokona and asks about Marika's current situation. Kokona notes that Marika is currently busy trying to intimidate him with a terrifying aura and muscular arms growing from her meter. Kanata tells Kokona that he wants to clear up a misunderstanding about the hug from earlier. Kokona is flustered and insists that it wasn't what it looked like. Kanata explains the situation to Kokona and she says she understands his side. Kanata thanks her for her help just as Niino calls out to him. Niino Hidaka and Yamato Nikki congratulate Kanata on his hard work. Kanata thanks them both for their support. Yamato asks if it is really okay for the two of them to a tent with Niino. Niino makes a joke about how this is his first appearance since the serialization started, but Kanata tells him to stop being so meta. Niino pouts and asks why he is being left out of the conversation. Kanata and Yamato look worried as Niino wonders if their sexuality will be warped by the end of the night. Yamato asks if something happened between them. Kanata confirms it and mentions that he remains loyal to Marika. The story flashes forward to a conversation between Yamato and Kanata. Yamato tells Kanata that he really needs to explain himself properly to Marika. Kanata looks stressed and says he has to figure out his next move. Niino pops up and asks if Kanata and Marika are having a fight. Kanata admits that it isn't exactly a fight. Niino suddenly hugs Kanata from behind and calls it a British-style greeting. Kanata panics because he knows this will cause another misunderstanding with Marika, who is watching them from a distance. The disaster prevention drill continues as the students are instructed to begin cooking curry for dinner. Kanata uses a megaphone to tell the participants to be careful while preparing the food so no one gets injured. Kanata finishes his rounds and reports back to the president. Rika thanks him for his assistance. Yamato and Niino finish preparing a massive pot of curry very quickly. Yamato explains that they just need to let it stew now. Kanata spots Marika in the distance. Yamato tells Kanata to go off and play since his work is done, but Kanata complains about being treated like a dog before deciding to check on Marika. Kanata approaches Marika but is suddenly grabbed by two large purple arms growing from her affection meter. He is terrified and realizes the arms belong to the meter. The meter's arms fling Kanata across the area with immense force. Kanata lands hard and feels battered. He wonders what just happened to him. Marika stirs a large pot of curry with a smile. The purple substance from her meter leaks directly into the food. Large amounts of the liquid from the meter continue to drip and mix into the pot while Marika works. Sayuki looks at the pot with suspicion as the food emits an intense rainbow glow. Marika is delighted by the result, but Sayuki is sweating and wonders what exactly went into the meal. Kanata tries to approach Marika again but stops when he sees her meter's arms acting menacingly. He decides he can't get close to her right now. Kokona asks if the color of the food is strange and wonders if Marika used food coloring. Marika claims she didn't add anything extra to the pot. Sayuki thinks the glowing food looks incredibly suspicious. However, Marika and Kokona start eating and find the meal delicious and photogenic. Rika uses a megaphone to ask the students if they have finished their preparations. Kanata watches from a distance and hopes that Marika's group is doing okay. Yamato and Niino stand proudly by their pot of curry. Kanata is thanked for his contribution even though he didn't actually do any of the work. Rika holds up a lottery box and announces that every group will now have to exchange their curry with another group. Rika reveals that Kitami's group will exchange food with Marika's group. Kanata is filled with dread, believing the president is intentionally making the situation more complicated. Marika eats the curry from Kanata's group and finds it delicious. She thinks Kanata is a genius cook and wants to take the food home. Kokona enjoys the meal and thinks that men who can cook are wonderful. Sayuki eats as well and acknowledges the food is tasty, but she knows Kanata had nothing to do with making it. Yamato asks Kanata why he looks so happy about Marika's curry. Kanata stares at the food with a look of intense dread. A plate of rainbow-colored gaming curry is served with white rice. Yamato is shocked by the bizarre color of the meal. Niino takes multiple photos of the colorful curry and calls it cute. Yamato asks if he truly thinks the food looks acceptable to eat. Niino takes a bite and announces that it is time to eat. Yamato watches skeptically as the curry glows on the plate. Niino's eyes sparkle with stars after tasting the food. Niino declares that the curry is delicious. Yamato and Kanata prepare to take their first bites with lingering doubt. Yamato and Kanata both shout in surprise as they realize the food tastes amazing. Kanata eats with a blush and wonders how the purple liquid from the meter made the food so delightful. Niino tells him how good the meal turned out. Niino suddenly jumps on Kanata and gives him a tight hug while shouting a cat-like sound. Kanata is completely startled. Niino starts acting like a cat and crawls away on all fours. Kanata panics and asks what has happened to him while watching the strange behavior. Yamato collapses in a chair and becomes a grayed-out silhouette. Kanata looks at his friend in horror. Kanata clutches his chest and realizes that something was very wrong with the curry he just ate. A silhouetted figure in white robes resembling a goddess version of Marika embraces Kanata from behind. Kanata is frozen in fear. The goddess figure closes her eyes and smiles as she holds Kanata. He recognizes her as Marika. A recap text explains that Kanata and the boys ate Marika's meter-filled soup in the previous chapter. Niino continues to cling to Kanata while Yamato remains slumped over nearby. Kanata clutches his chest as his heart begins to race, sensing that something strange is happening to his body. The group of girls finish their meal and give thanks for the curry. Chitose and Mikasa are called away for a moment by another student. Sayuki offers to take care of the cleaning so they can leave. Sayuki begins gathering the plates while the others thank her and head out. Kanata suddenly pulls Sayuki into a tight hug from behind, catching her completely off guard with his boldness. Kanata offers to help with the cleaning while Sayuki panics and wonders if she is in a dream. He assures her that he is very real. Sayuki demands to know why he is being so bold and notes that he has changed too much. Kanata tells her that people can change. Kanata moves even closer and tells her not to be so brash. Sayuki blushes and asks him to stop because the contact tickles. As they stand by the sink, Sayuki wonders what happened to Kanata and if he actually likes her. Sayuki recalls a dream she once had about getting married to Kanata and wonders if it was a premonition of things to come. Sayuki is overcome with excitement and realizes that her dream might have been right. Sayuki reaches her limit and faints from the intensity of her emotions. Kanata picks up the unconscious Sayuki just as Mikasa returns and asks what he is doing. Kanata sets Sayuki down in a tent before pinning Mikasa against the wall with his arm. Mikasa reacts with total confusion and panic while Kanata explains that Sayuki suddenly passed out. Mikasa wonders why Kanata has suddenly pushed her against the wall. Kanata explains that he took care of Sayuki, but Mikasa is too flustered by his proximity to focus on what he is saying. Mikasa begs him to leave her alone, but Kanata jokingly tells her that he doesn't want to leave her side. Mikasa is shocked by the massive shift in Kanata's personality. Mikasa feels overwhelmed as she compares Kanata's current affectionate behavior to his previous cool demeanor. Mikasa reflects on how easily she was being persuaded by his actions. Mikasa panics and wonders if she is an easy woman to win over. Mikasa loses her self-control as she worries that she is about to be attacked by Kanata. Kanata catches Mikasa as she faints, breathing a sigh of relief. Kanata lays the unconscious Mikasa down inside the tent next to Sayuki. Marika hurries back to the camp, realizing that she has been away longer than she planned. Marika thinks about how nice it is for the others to spend time with their crushes and feels guilty for being cruel to Kanata. Marika's internal thoughts are depicted as a candy-filled world high in the clouds. A devilish version of Marika argues that Kanata is to blame because he was seen hugging another woman. An angelic version of Marika suggests there might be a misunderstanding, but the devil version attacks her. and shouts that Kanata has no shame. Devil Marika yells that high school boys are just monkeys driven by lust, while Angel Marika begs her to stop using her face to say such crude things. A middle-aged man version of Marika appears and suggests that men and women usually fight because they haven't talked through their problems. The middle-aged version tells Marika she should focus on telling Kanata how she feels before she becomes a nuisance. Marika thinks the advice is blunt, especially coming from someone with so little hair. Marika finally resolves her inner conflict and decides that she is going to confess her feelings to Kanata. Marika returns to the campsite and spots Kanata sitting by himself at a table. Kanata sits in a suave pose and welcomes Marika back with a smooth greeting that leaves her wondering what has happened to him. Marika asks where the other girls are, and Kanata claims he was just thinking that she looked lonely by herself. Kanata tells Marika not to worry about the others because they are alone now, making her feel even more confused. Marika asks for an explanation for the current situation, but Kanata just continues to smile and act like he understands everything. Marika feels like something is very wrong with Kanata and that they are not communicating on the same wavelength at all. Marika is unsettled by his strange behavior just as Kanata places a hand on her shoulder and tells her there is no need to worry. Marika shouts that this isn't the real Kanata while he casually parries a punch from the purple meteor monster. Kanata holds the meteor's arm up and politely asks the creature to move aside so he can get through. Kanata begins to close in on Marika with a suave smile while she backs away in fear. Kanata suddenly slips on a banana peel and falls to the ground. Marika rushes over to help him up and asks if he is all right. The purple liquid from the meteor is forced into Kanata's mouth while Marika watches in alarm. Kanata collapses and loses consciousness while foaming at the mouth as Marika screams his name in a panic. Marika finds Mikasa and Sayuki unconscious inside the tent with nosebleeds. She panics and calls out for help, wondering if she has stumbled into a suspense show. The next morning, Kanata wakes up on the ground outside and wonders why he spent the night there. Niino wakes up confused to find herself stuck high up in a tree. Nearby, Yamato sits in a dazed stupor with drool running down his chin. Kanata attempts to greet the girls, but Mikasa, Marika, and Sayuki all turn their backs on him and walk away. He is left completely baffled by their cold behavior. Sayuki blushes intensely and hides her face, clearly flustered by her memories of the previous night. Mikasa is also deeply embarrassed and struggles to process the events that took place. Kanata stands alone and tries to figure out exactly what happened to make everyone act so strangely toward him. Later at home, Kanata relaxes in the bathtub and sighs about how tired he feels after the trip. Kanata realizes he has gaps in his memory and that his whole body aches from sleeping outside. He remembers the upset looks on the girls' faces and worries about what occurred. Kanata washes his hair and decides he needs to get to bed early to be ready for school the next day. Kanata is startled when his reflection in the mirror suddenly changes into a completely different, more polished art style. The reflection claims to be the other Kanata living inside him. Kanata is shocked and demands to know who he is talking to. The handsome reflection explains that he exists because Kanata has a handsome side as well. Kanata gives a hesitant and confused response as he processes the situation. Regular Kanata asks his reflection why this handsome version of himself is only appearing now. The handsome reflection suggests watching a video recording to understand the cause. They watch a recording of the training camp where the suave version of Kanata interacted with Marika. The footage captures Kanata being force-fed the meteor liquid and his subsequent fall. Handsome Kanata admits that he slips quite frequently. Handsome Kanata clarifies that he was born from that event, leaving the regular version completely confused by the explanation. Regular Kanata worries about the toxic effect of Marika's meteor, recalling how the curry transformed Niino and Yamato. The handsome reflection asserts that they simply need to win over Marika's heart to fix everything. He further explains that Marika's state is caused by distorted feelings and the goal is to normalize her emotions. Regular Kanata finishes his bath and prepares to leave, but he slips on the floor despite a warning from his other self. Kanata lands a heavy blow on his head against the tub and passes out. At dawn the following day, Kanata wakes up in his room at home. Kanata tells his mother good morning and says he is feeling great after his trip. His father notes that he looks unusually handsome this morning as he reads the news. Standing before the mirror, Kanata sees that the handsome persona has taken over. The handsome personality concludes that the head injury caused them to switch roles, while the original Kanata's spirit yells to be returned to his body. Handsome Kanata smirks and tells his original self that he can only watch while he goes to win over Marika. Regular Kanata tells him not to do anything unnecessary. Marika walks to school reflecting on the strange events of the training camp and hoping for a normal day. She enters the classroom and greets her classmates. Handsome Kanata greets Marika with a confident smile. She is shocked by his appearance and asks if he is really the same person because he looks so different. Kanata laughs it off and says he might have just grown taller. Marika remains skeptical, thinking that he seems completely different from how he was during the disaster drill. Marika hears whispering and notices Mikasa and Sayuki peeking into the room from the doorway. Marika asks if the two of them are coming inside. They nervously watch Kanata from a distance. Sayuki and Mikasa both blush and agree that Kanata looks much cooler than usual today. Marika asks what they are talking about but then admits to herself that he really does look cooler. Kanata stands behind them and listens to the conversation. Mikasa and Sayuki run away squealing with embarrassment while Kanata watches them go. A teacher tells Kanata that homeroom is about to start and he should head inside. Kanata suavely asks the girls why they are acting so strange, leaving Marika flustered by his choice of words. Kanata says goodbye to Marika for the time being. The narration notes that his passionate approach has officially begun. Kanata begins doing various favors for Marika, such as placing a handkerchief on a bench for her and running errands to buy her food. Kanata presents Marika with a large bouquet of flowers and thanks her for everything. Marika is confused and wonders if it is Mother's Day. Marika broods over the flowers while noting that she couldn't even finish the bread he bought her. The meter monster nearby continues to react to the situation. Marika walks down the hallway thinking about how strangely Kanata acted all day. She wonders if he is trying his best to get her attention and concludes that he is actually quite cute. Chitose enters a room carrying a bouquet of flowers and thinks about how she wants things to go back to normal with Kanata-kun soon. The student council president thanks Chitose and asks if she is experiencing romance issues, which shocks Chitose. Noticing Chitose's worried expression, the president offers to give her some advice on her situation. Chitose tries to claim she is asking on behalf of a friend, but the president realizes the problem is actually between Chitose and Katami-kun. After a conversation, the president summarizes that Chitose wants Katami-kun to return to his usual self, though Chitose continues to insist the story is about a friend. The president grows anxious because she gave advice without thinking despite having no actual dating experience. At home, she spends her time reading fantasy novels on her laptop. She feels she must see the situation through to maintain her credibility as the student council president. The president presents a wrapped book and tells Chitose that this literature will help her become a master of love. Chitose nervously accepts the gift and starts to pull the book out of the bag while the president tells her to read it carefully. The book reveals a cover depicting a romantic scene between two men. Chitose reacts with intense shock and embarrassment after seeing the content of the book. Chitose stares at the pages, peeking at the content with a mixture of hesitation and curiosity. Chitose becomes completely infatuated with the book and finds it amazing while the president watches her. The president presses a button that causes a bookshelf to move while Chitose remains flustered and questions if the book is truly helpful. The student council president reveals her secret library of adult and teen romance manga, much to Marika's disbelief. The president explains that the girls in her collection are always being pursued by men, leaving Marika feeling flustered. Kanata searches the school for Marika and wonders if she has already gone home for the day. Kanata greets Hinami-senpai and asks about Marika while his inner thoughts tell him to avoid doing anything unnecessary. Hinami tells Kanata she just arrived and suggests that Marika might still be inside the school. Marika finds Kanata and notices his altered personality while he greets her and thanks her for her work. Influenced by the books she saw, Marika shyly asks Kanata if he would like to walk home with her. Kanata smiles and agrees to go home together, causing his inner self to react with worry to her unusual behavior. A summary states that Kanata and Marika walked home together after being affected by the encounter with the president's collection. As they walk, Kanata reflects on the strange appearance of a more handsome personality within himself. Kanata observes Marika and thinks about how her mood seems different than it usually does. The student council president is identified as the person responsible for the change in their behavior. Kanata's inner self gets a bad feeling and urges the pair to head home quickly. Kanata strikes a pose and suggests they go on an after-school date to a department store, causing his inner self to scream in frustration. Marika joyfully accepts the suggestion and agrees to go on the date. Sayuki spots Kanata and Chitose walking together while Kanata's inner self screams in frustration. Sayuki instinctively hides behind a bush and observes the pair, thinking they look like they are on a pleasant date. Sayuki tries to convince herself the situation has nothing to do with her, but she decides to follow them anyway. The scene shifts to a department store where customers are browsing the aisles. Spying from behind a wall, Sayuki finds it childish that Kanata immediately headed to the toy corner. Kanata finds a toy at a capsule machine, and Chitose appears to be enjoying herself, causing Sayuki to question the quality of the date spot. A red robot toy pops out of a capsule, and Chitose recognizes it as one that Kanata likes. Kanata begins talking excessively about the character's design and color, while Chitose listens to his long-winded explanation. Sayuki remembers how she once ranted to Mashiro about a frying pan and realizes her own hypocrisy in judging Kanata's hobbies. The group moves to a clothing store filled with various outfits and displays. Sayuki peeks at Kanata as he waits for Chitose to finish trying on clothes in the dressing room. Chitose emerges wearing a white dress, and Kanata praises her look as flawless, which confuses the spying Sayuki. Chitose tries on several different outfits ranging from casual to elegant as her excitement continues to grow. Kanata calls her stunning, leading Sayuki to mock his lack of vocabulary while she hides nearby. Kanata tells Chitose that every outfit fits her perfectly, and Sayuki secretly agrees that she looks cute in everything. Kanata asks if he can try on some clothes as well. Chitose is eager to see what he chooses. Sayuki watches from nearby, wondering what kind of outfit he will pick out. Kanata emerges from the dressing room wearing a strange, heavily buckled outfit and asks for their opinion. Chitose is completely stunned by his choice and freezes up. Chitose quickly changes her mind and praises the outfit as wild and excellent. Sayuki realizes that Chitose's feelings for him are making her overlook his bad fashion sense. Kanata decides to buy the strange outfit using his New Year's money. Sayuki watches the purchase and finds herself strangely impressed by his dedication to his own tastes. Kanata and Chitose walk away happy with the new purchase. Sayuki decides that as long as they are both having fun, she doesn't need to interfere. Sayuki suddenly scolds herself for cheering them on, remembering that she shouldn't want them to get along so well. However, she feels conflicted about wishing for their date to fail. The couple heads over to an arcade called Game Land. They stop at a crane machine to try and win a stuffed bear together. Kanata successfully wins a stuffed bear for Chitose and looks very proud of himself. Chitose is overjoyed and hugs the prize tightly. The two of them pose for a commemorative photo together, making heart shapes with their hands and smiling. Sayuki observes that the date has been going surprisingly well and feels a strange sense of pride in Kanata. Kanata then suggests they visit another store. They stop in front of a store window displaying various sets of women's lingerie. Sayuki is shocked and angry that Kanata would take Chitose into a lingerie store during an after-school date. She thinks he has completely lost his sense of consideration. Inside the store, Kanata holds up a frilly pink lingerie set and asks Chitose if it would look good on her. Sayuki watches, expecting Chitose to be appalled by his behavior. Instead of being angry, Chitose blushes and recalls a suggestive scene from a manga she read. Sayuki is surprised to see that Chitose doesn't seem to be opposed to the idea at all. Chitose asks to go to a bookstore next. Kanata makes another purchase at the counter using his gift money while Sayuki spies on them from behind the bookshelves. Sayuki is outraged that the couple is buying an explicit romance book in the middle of their date. Sayuki feels completely exhausted and drained from following them and watching their strange behavior. Kanata suggests they finish the date with a romantic ride. Sayuki wonders if the department store actually has a Ferris wheel or something similar. The ride turns out to be a small stationary panda attraction meant for young children. Sayuki finds the situation ridiculous and decides it is time to go home. Meanwhile, Kanata and Chitose approach the panda ride with excitement. A staff member informs them that two people are not allowed to ride the panda at once. Kanata apologizes to Chitose, and they both feel dejected by the news. Chitose pouts in frustration, causing her emotional meter to inflate to a dangerous size. Kanata notices the strange swelling and wonders what is happening. The meter suddenly ruptures and splashes purple fluid onto the panda ride. Kanata realizes that the failed escort plan has greatly displeased Chitose. The eyes of the contaminated panda ride begin to flash with a sinister pink light. The panda ride suddenly comes to life and begins moving wildly at a high speed. The panda ride charges straight towards Sayuki, who is distracted by her phone. Kanata shouts out for her to watch out. Kanata panics as the machine closes in on Sayuki. Sayuki is startled by the sudden commotion and the approaching mechanical animal. Kanata lunges forward and delivers a massive punch, smashing the runaway panda ride into pieces to save Sayuki. Chitose and Sayuki watch in shock as a huge cloud of dust and smoke rises from the wreckage of the machine. Kanata sits amidst the rubble of the destroyed ride and tells Sayuki he is relieved that she is unharmed. Kanata sits among the wreckage of the panda ride as voices call out to him. A ringing sound fills his ears as he begins to lose consciousness. Kanata's eyes suddenly snap open as he regains awareness. He finds himself in a strange white room and realizes he is in a hospital. A doctor enters the room and asks if he has woken up yet. He tells Kanata that his right arm is broken and will take 2 months to heal, leaving Kanata in disbelief. A brief summary explains that Kanata broke his elbow during the incident and was rushed to the emergency room. Now resting in his hospital room with his arm in a sling, Kanata complains about how bored he is. He thinks back to the moment he saved Sayuki, wondering if he used up all his strength since his bolder personality has not returned. Kanata continues to reflect on why that side of him appeared and if it was related to Chitose's love meter. He contemplates the strange and monstrous evolutions the love meters have gone through lately, finding the whole situation cryptic. Kanata starts to suspect that the meters are something else entirely. He hears a knock on the door and tells the person to come in. Mikasa enters the room with a basket of fruit, explaining that the class sent it for him. Kanata thanks her for coming to visit. Mikasa is pleased to see him in high spirits. Kanata mentions he has been watching animal videos to pass the time and asks her for some channel suggestions. Mikasa leans in close to Kanata so they can look at a video together on her phone. As Kanata shows her the screen, Mikasa finds the content very cute. Her own love meter rises quickly as they sit together. Mikasa asks if they can go to the dog park together once he is discharged from the hospital. Kanata agrees and mentions how much he misses seeing her pet dog. Mikasa thinks back to a past memory of hugging Kanata. She becomes flustered as she stands in the hospital room. Kanata asks if she is feeling all right because her face has turned red. Mikasa remains quiet and nervous. Mikasa suddenly exclaims that she wants Kanata to call her by her first name. Kanata agrees to the request, but asks why she wants this so suddenly. Mikasa claims it is because they are fellow dog lovers. Kanata asks if it is okay to call her Kokona-san, and she loudly confirms that it is. Mikasa is overjoyed to be on a first-name basis. Her love meter sprouts 2 smiling sunflower creatures in response to her excitement. Kanata is confused and frightened by the appearance of the sunflower monsters on the meter. He thinks the evolution of the love meter is becoming scary. Kanata thanks Mikasa for the visit as she gets ready to head home. Outside in the hallway, Chitose is walking toward his room. Chitose sees Mikasa leaving and realizes she was just visiting Kanata. She stops at his door and knocks to announce her arrival. Kanata welcomes Chitose into the room with a wave. She sits down and mentions that she noticed Mikasa was just there. Kanata explains that Mikasa came by to deliver gifts from their classmates. Chitose tells him to eat the fruit and focus on getting better. Kanata mentions that Kokona-san showed him a video earlier. Chitose is immediately struck by his use of her first name and her love meter begins to react violently. Kanata offers to some of the fruit with her. Chitose declines and says she has other things to do and needs to go home. Chitose remembers Mashiro's advice about leaving a date early to make someone want them more. She tells Kanata she will return tomorrow and walks away. Kanata begins to cry, thinking that Chitose must hate him. Out in the hall, Chitose is also crying because she hates having to leave him. While staying in the hospital, Kanata starts sketching the various monsters he has seen on the love meters in a notebook. Kanata wonders if the love meter is actually a monster dex as he looks over his sketches. He hears a knock on the door and tells the visitor to come in. Sayuki enters the room and greets him. Kanata gets excited and waves his bandaged arm, but he immediately winces in pain, leading Sayuki to call him a moron. Sayuki tells him to just relax for now. She notices the large basket of fruit on the table, and Kanata explains that everyone in his class sent it for him. Seiyuki offers to cut some of the fruit up for him. Kanata excitedly tells her that he would really love to eat some of the melon. Seiyuki leaves the room to go borrow a knife from the staff. Kanata suddenly realizes he left his notebook of monster drawings open and feels a bit panicked. Kanata recalls that Seiyuki's love meter also looked terrifying in the past. He reminds himself to be careful around her. Seiyuki returns with a plate of sliced melon. She finds Kanata's intense desire for the fruit cute, and her love meter shows that she is in a very good mood. Kanata finds it very difficult to use a fork with his left hand. Seiyuki realizes the situation and decides to help him out. Seiyuki holds a piece of melon out to Kanata and tells him to open his mouth. Kanata asks if she is really sure about feeding him. Seiyuki gets embarrassed and tells him to shut up and just hurry and eat. Kanata takes a bite of the melon. He smiles and tells her that the fruit tastes really good. Seiyuki watches him eat with a gentle smile on her face. Her love meter reacts with celebratory symbols as she enjoys the moment. Seiyuki starts stuffing pieces of melon into Kanata's mouth much too quickly. He struggles to chew and tells her he cannot eat that much at once. Seiyuki sits on the couch and apologizes, saying she feels responsible for his injury because he protected her. Kanata tells her that it wasn't her fault at all. Seiyuki tears up and thanks Kanata from the bottom of her heart. He tells her he is just glad she is safe, though he secretly credits his alternate personality with doing the heavy lifting. Seiyuki's love meter suddenly changes with the plant monster popping away to reveal a large, happy cat with a heart on its chest. Kanata watches the transformation with curiosity as Seiyuki wipes away her tears. Kanata admits he still doesn't understand much about how the love meter works. However, seeing the kitty appear makes him feel certain that Seiyuki really does like him. Seiyuki stands very close to Kanata's bed just as Chitose walks into the room. Chitose stops in her tracks, noticing the intimate mood between the two of them. Chitose is horrified by the atmosphere, wondering what happened to her perfect plan. She stands by the door, feeling completely defeated by the scene. Chitose realizes that Seiyuki doesn't look sad at all, but has the expression of a girl deeply in love. She also notes that Kanata seems even more focused on the cat imagery than on Seiyuki herself. Chitose walks down the hall, reflecting on how Kanata has never had a girlfriend or any romantic rumors until now. Chitose clutches her head, feeling that Kanata's sudden popularity is getting out of control. She thinks back to all the strange things that have been happening recently. Chitose recalls a series of bizarre events, including people being blown away, doors staying shut for no reason, and people's personalities changing instantly. She feels like the world is becoming increasingly strange. Chitose decides that Kanata's popularity is just another part of this bizarre trend of weird phenomena. The following day, the scene shifts to the student council room. Toyotomi visits the student council to ask for advice. The vice president looks annoyed and tells her that they aren't experts on every subject. Meshiro adjusts her glasses and declares that Kanata is definitely the source of the unknown phenomena. She believes everything is happening because of their love meters, while the other girls are confused by her talk of occult matters. Meshiro explains that when she checked the gym after they were locked in, she found the key and the door were perfectly fine. Chitose is shocked to hear this new information. Chitose wonders if Kanata was responsible for forcing the door shut and then breaking it open. The other girls find the idea impossible, noting that Kanata is too weak and the door is made of iron. Meshiro prepares a rope and happily announces her plan to capture and interview Kanata as soon as he leaves the hospital. Chitose and Toyotomi watch her with expressions of pure dread. Kanata and Seiyuki sit together on a park bench outside the hospital, completely unaware of the student council's suspicions or their plans to capture him. Following his discharge from the hospital, Kanata finally returns to school and feels happy to be back in the familiar environment. As he walks through the hallway, Kanata spots Chitose standing in a group with Meshiro and the other members of the student council. Kanata gets a bad feeling from the group's presence and tries to sneak away, deciding to take a detour to avoid a confrontation. Kanata arrives at his classroom and greets his friends. Seiyuki and Mikasa are both startled but happy to see that he has returned. Mikasa asks if he is feeling okay after his time away. Kanata confirms he is doing well and thanks them both for their support. Seiyuki tells him not to push himself too hard while he is still recovering. Kanata tries to reassure her that he will be fine. Kanata notices the small, happy cat monster sitting on Seiyuki's shoulder and finds it very cute as she continues to scold him for being reckless. Sayuki becomes extremely flustered when she realizes Kanata is staring at her and insists that nothing is wrong, which startles him. Niino suddenly appears and hugs Kanata to celebrate his return to school. Yamato also greets him and says he is glad Kanata made it back. Kanata feels relieved to be back after his long absence. He asks where Chitose is, and his friends tell him that she hasn't arrived in the classroom yet. Chitose enters the room looking a bit tired and greets everyone. Kanata asks if she is all right, and she gives a vague answer, leading him to wonder if she is stressed about the student council. Later in the day, Kanata walks through the school hallway alone as the sun shines through the windows. Kanata spots the student council members gathered together again near a staircase and feels another sense of unease. Kanata is shocked to see that Mashiro and the other girls in the council have all started wearing dark sunglasses indoors. The student council members surround Kanata while wearing dark sunglasses. Kanata asks them what the deal is as he starts to panic. The girls suddenly charge at Kanata, causing him to scream in confusion and terror. Kanata takes off running through the school, terrified and wondering why they are chasing him. Kanata continues to flee, feeling distressed and wondering what they mean by him being hunted. Kanata keeps running while expressing his frustration at the situation. He wonders if the love meter is responsible for this chaos as the girls continue their search nearby. A giant notification telling him to run appears, which looks exactly like the president's meter. Kanata yells at the annoying label and shivers, realizing he needs to escape immediately while the girls search for him. Kanata sees one of the girls using a phone and worries about their plan as they continue to dash toward him. More sunglasses-wearing pursuers join the chase. Kanata feels like he is in an RPG as the number of girls chasing him increases. Kanata stops to yell at the girls, asking if they are bored or if they should be studying for exams. The girls simply stare back at him without saying a word. Kanata becomes completely exhausted and begins running out of breath. A school bell begins to chime just as he reaches his limit. To Kanata's surprise, the girls suddenly freeze and stop their pursuit the moment the bell rings. The student council members turn away and quietly trudge into a classroom. Kanata is left stunned and asks if they are kidding. Kanata catches his breath, relieved that he somehow managed to get away. He finds the persistent warning label hovering near him to be incredibly irritating. Kanata walks through the school, glad to have avoided another incident, but still curious about what the council was up to. An announcement suddenly begins to play over the speakers. Mashiro appears on a classroom television screen and announces a school-wide manhunt for Kanata. She offers a reward for his capture, leaving Kanata in a state of utter shock as he wonders if the TV was always there. The classroom erupts into chatter as Kanata's classmates debate whether they should follow the student council's orders and catch him. Kanata panics, feeling the weight of their gaze and wondering how things escalated so far. Kanata feels completely cornered and believes his time is up. Suddenly, someone calls out to him from the edge of the crowd. Chitose grabs Kanata by the hand and starts running, pulling him away from the confused classmates. Kanata follows her lead as they make a quick exit from the school. Sayuki and Mikasa watch the two run off together, looking suspicious of their sudden departure. Around them, other students continue to gossip about the unusual pair. Once they are a safe distance from the school, Kanata stops to catch his breath and thanks Chitose for her timely help. He admits that he might be the one responsible for the strange situation. Chitose feels terrible and apologizes, believing that she is the one causing all the trouble. Kanata realizes that the crazy events are definitely being caused by the love meters, but he knows he cannot mention that to her. Chitose is overcome with gloom and regrets asking Kanata for help in the first place. Kanata quickly tries to reassure her, telling her that she isn't to blame for anything. Chitose clenches her fists and vows to protect Kanata no matter what happens next. Her love meter reacts violently to her intense resolve, leaving Kanata feeling even more worried despite her kind words. Kanata is startled to see that more people wearing sunglasses have appeared on the street. He tells Chitose that the hunters seem to be multiplying and closing in on them. Kanata feels that it is impossible for him to return to his own home safely with so many people looking for him. Chitose watches him with a thoughtful and concerned expression. Chitose nervously asks Kanata if he would like to come to her house for safety. Her love meter begins to bubble over with purple energy as she waits for his answer, leaving Kanata stunned. They arrive at Chitose's residence and take off their shoes at the entrance. Chitose calls out that she is home while Kanata follows her inside tentatively. Chidos's younger sister Mayu greets them in the hallway. She looks at Kanata with a cold expression and asks her sister who the boy is. Chidos introduces Kanata as a childhood friend they used to play with. Mayu gives a cold response and focuses on her phone, reminding Kanata that she has never really liked him. The two of them move into the living room, which is quiet and bright with the afternoon sunlight. Chidos tries to hug Mayu and complains about being lonely because her sister attends a boarding school. Mayu remains indifferent and says she does not care. Mayu asks if they came over to study together. Chidos remembers their predicament and explains that Kanata is currently wanted, though her wording makes the situation sound far more incriminating than it is. Chidos pulls out a laptop and tells Kanata she's going to check on something. Chidos opens her laptop to show security camera footage from his apartment complex to see if anyone is still there. Mayu is horrified and wonders if her sister actually hacked a security system. Mayu mentions she wants to go home soon. She suggests that Kanata should just sleep over since their parents are not home, which shocks both him and Chidos. Chidos is secretly thrilled by the unexpected suggestion and praises Mayu in her head. Kanata is flustered and worries that staying over is asking for too much. Chidos suggests using Mayu's room for Kanata, but Mayu insists on using her own room. Mayu asks why Kanata cannot just sleep in Chidos's room instead. Chidos stops and stares at her sister in silence. Kanata thinks the idea might be pushing things too far. Chidos tells them to just go to her room for now. As they walk up the stairs, Chidos becomes increasingly panicked. Her heart is not ready for this, and she feels like she has forgotten something incredibly important. Chidos suddenly remembers that her entire room is covered in secret photos and posters of Kanata. She realizes the state of her room is completely insane. Chidos stops at the top of the stairs and nervously claims her room is just a little messy. Kanata follows behind and asks if she is all right. Mayu tells her sister to stop stalling and get inside. Kanata tries to reassure Chidos by saying he is nervous as well. Chidos clutches her head in despair as she looks at the shrine of Kanata photos on her wall. She is certain that her life is over if he sees them. Chidos is now fully aware of the crisis she faces if Kanata steps into her outrageous room. Kanata asks if everything is okay. Chidos, looking extremely nervous, asks if she can clean her room before he enters, and he agrees. Chidos instructs Kanata to wait in the living room while she takes care of her room. Kanata heads downstairs, noting to himself that she is behaving very strangely. Back in the living room, Mayu looks up from her phone and notices that Kanata has returned. Mayu suggests that since her sister is busy, Kanata should just relax on the couch with her for the time being. Kanata thanks her for the offer, thinking to himself that she is actually quite gentle despite her expressionless face. Kanata realizes that she isn't interested in talking and is completely focused on her phone. He notices that her love meter remains at a very low level. Kanata suddenly imagines a future where he marries Chidos and Mayu becomes his sister-in-law. He becomes determined to use this opportunity to raise Mayu's love meter. Kanata pumps his fists in excitement while Mayu glances at him and wonders if she should say something. Internally, Mayu is a nervous wreck because she told him to sit right next to her and now finds herself unable to speak. Mayu tries to regain her composure by using her phone, but she ends up just spamming her social media feed for no reason. Mayu grows frustrated that Kanata hasn't found a single topic to discuss while Kanata sits there looking terrified and unable to think of what to say. Mayu insults him in her mind for being a loser, but then she immediately regrets it as the thought reflects back on her own inability to speak. Kanata catches Mayu scowling at him and feels a surge of panic. Mayu gets flustered and tells him to stop staring at her. Kanata quickly apologizes for his behavior. Kanata observes her love meter and worries that it hasn't moved at all or perhaps even dropped further. Kanata leans in close to Mayu and notices that the edge of her love meter is starting to peel off. Mayu is startled and shouts that he is way too close to her. A loud screeching sound suddenly echoes through the room, catching them both off guard. Kanata wonders what the noise was as Mayu quickly runs out of the room. Loud, booming noises come from the floor above. Mayu asks if the neighbors are doing construction work late at night. Kanata and Mayu rush upstairs to find Chidos standing in a room where a table has been overturned. Kanata insists they heard loud noises and looks at a plain wall with Mayu in confusion. Chidos claims the noise was just their imagination, and Kanata reluctantly accepts her explanation. Kanata is shocked to find that Chidos's room appears completely empty and unlived in. Chitose nervously says she is a minimalist, though Kanata remains skeptical of her story. Kanata examines the floor plan and finds the layout of the room to be very strange. Chitose continues to act cheerful while Mayu watches her sister in silent dread. Chitose suggests they have a slumber party until it is time for bed. Kanata agrees to the plan and Mayu tells them to have fun before leaving the room. The two of them change into pajamas and a toast with their drinks. Kanata thinks her pajamas are very cute. Kanata sits uncomfortably in a pair of borrowed pink and white striped pajamas and short shorts. Chitose apologizes for only having those available, and Kanata reluctantly accepts them since he needed something to wear. Chitose starts snapping multiple photos of Kanata on her phone, telling him that he looks super good in the outfit. Kanata gets embarrassed and pleads for her to stop taking pictures. Chitose holds up an even more feminine frilly pink outfit and suggests Kanata try that one on next if he is unhappy with the pajamas. Kanata is horrified and begs her to spare him from any further dress up. The two of them sit together and relax. Chitose remarks that it feels like they haven't had a chance to just sit and talk like this in a long time, and Kanata agrees. Kanata reflects on how he has been constantly on the move lately because of the student council's interference. Chitose begins to drift off to sleep while mumbling that they should stay good friends. Kanata notices her nodding off and warns her that she might catch a cold if she sleeps on the floor. As Chitose falls asleep, Kanata notices the room is far too small for a bed. He hears a strange rustling sound coming from behind the wall and goes to investigate. Kanata leans closer to the wall and hears a man's voice faintly calling out from the other side. He is startled by the unexpected sound. The man's voice tells someone it is time for bed. Kanata is completely baffled to hear a man talking from inside the wall. Behind the wall is a hidden collection of Kanata-themed merchandise, including plushies and a body pillow equipped with an alarm function that plays a recorded voice. Kanata knocks on the wall and confirms his suspicion that the area behind it is hollow. Recalling the strange floor plan he saw earlier, Kanata realizes there must be a secret hidden room right behind the wall. Determined to help whoever he thinks is trapped inside, Kanata continues to search for an opening along the wall. Meanwhile, Chitose begins to stir from her sleep. Kanata continues to pat the wall, searching for a way in. Chitose wakes up and panics when she sees him inspecting the secret area, accidentally knocking over the table. Chitose screams in terror, realizing her life with Kanata will be ruined if he discovers her secret collection. Kanata looks disgusted by the weird vibes of the room while Chitose desperately slams her fist onto a large red button on the floor. As Kanata reaches for the wall, a taser device suddenly pops out and shocks him with a high-voltage blast. He screams in agony as electricity surges through his entire skeleton. Kanata lies on the floor completely charred and smoldering from the intense shock. A small soul-like puff of smoke escapes his mouth as he remains dazed. Chitose gasps for air in a state of extreme panic. Downstairs, Mayu hears the commotion and shouts up to ask what is going on. Mayu enters the room and finds Kanata lying unconscious on the floor next to an overturned table. Chitose stands over him, looking absolutely horrified by the accident. Chitose tries to step on the button again while desperately claiming that the situation is not what it looks like. Mayu looks into the secret room and sees the massive collection of Kanata merchandise. The alarm function on the body pillow activates, playing a recording of Kanata's voice telling her sister to wake up. Mayu is visibly disgusted by her sister's obsession and tells Chitose to never speak of this to anyone. The next morning, Kanata slowly wakes up in a guest bed, feeling confused about where he is. Chitose walks into the room and greets him. Kanata sits up and realizes he is still at her house. Kanata remembers staying the night but feels confused as to why his borrowed pajamas are covered in burn marks. Kanata enters the kitchen where Chitose is preparing breakfast. She tells him it will be ready soon, but Kanata struggles with a headache and a nagging feeling that he has forgotten something important. Mayu stands near the dining table watching Kanata with her usual blank expression. Kanata notices that the top of Mayus' love meter is still peeling away, revealing more of the heart underneath. The three of them sit together on the couch in a relaxed atmosphere. The narration notes that Kanata ended up staying the night purely by chance. Mayu asks her sister if she was supposed to meet her friends today. Chitose is struck with a sudden realization and panics because she completely forgot about her engagement. Chitose panics and realizes she needs to get ready immediately. She quickly changes and apologizes to Kanata as she dashes out the door to meet her friends. Kanata is left behind feeling like a storm just passed through. Mayu asks him what they should do now that her sister is gone, and he admits he has no plans. Kanata asks Mayu if she wants to go outside with him as a thank you for letting him stay over. Mayu gets extremely flustered and wonders if he is actually inviting her on a date. Mayu feels a bit disappointed by his explanation but agrees to go along. Kanata mentions that he has the perfect location in mind for them to visit. The two of them arrive at a bustling local morning market filled with various seafood stalls and signs. Kanata suggests they walk through the morning market together. Mayu agrees to the plan and stays by his side. Mayu notes that her sister loves seafood and suggests they find some good items for her at the market. Kanata is impressed by her local knowledge and thoughtfulness. Kanata excitedly declares he will find Chitos's favorite foods. Mayu feels her heart racing as she realizes this is her first time ever being out alone with a boy. Mayu points out a popular activity where visitors can catch squid and have them prepared immediately. She mentions that her sister really likes squid. Kanata is shocked and asks if she really intends to give a live squid as a thank you gift. He tells himself that he would forgive her if he were the one receiving it. A plate of fresh sparkling squid sashimi is served appearing clear and high quality. Kanata tries the sashimi and is delighted by its beautiful appearance and delicious taste. Mayu offers Kanata some salmon roe and asks if he wants to try some as well. He happily accepts her offer. Kanata suddenly worries that this outing is just basic sightseeing. He tries to push the thought out of his head but remains anxious about the situation. Kanata realizes that Mayu's outfit is a perfect date choice and suspects that she put a lot of serious thought into her appearance today. Mayu says that the outfit she borrowed from her sister fits her quite well. Kanata points to his own oversized t-shirt and shorts, complaining that his borrowed outfit looks sloppy and gives off Sunday dad energy. Kanata feels embarrassed and wants to finish their shopping trip as quickly as possible. Mayu giggles and tells him to do his best to make her look better. Mayu envisions her ideal date, thinking about visiting a red brick warehouse or watching the night view from a ropeway. Kanata wonders what she is planning. Kokona spots Kanata and Mayu walking together from a distance and wonders if it is really him. Kokona looks through the market crowd, questioning who the child with Kanata is and if they are relatives. Her mother calls for her and she promises to head over soon. A massive burger is served and Kanata is completely shocked by its enormous size. Mayu explains that everything sold at the market is large. Kanata points out that they just finished eating seafood a short while ago. Mayu gets defensive and asks if he thinks she eats too much. Kanata tries to explain that isn't what he meant. Mayu begins to tear up while explaining that being on the swimming team makes her get hungry very easily. Kanata has a sudden realization and tells her that he thinks girls who eat a lot are actually really cute. Mayu blushes and gives a soft smile, saying she is glad if that is really the truth. Kanata feels his heart skip a beat at her reaction, though he notices that her love meter is still remaining quite low. Mayu asks if she can order a parfait to finish off her meal. Kanata hesitantly agrees to the request. The two of them stop at a general store. Kanata cries over his nearly empty wallet, lamenting that his allowance is now completely gone. Mayu stares intently at a display in a candle shop. Kanata asks if she has a thing for candles, but she explains that it is more complicated than just liking them. Mayu begins to recount a story from when she was a little kid. Kanata listens curiously to her explanation. She recalls how her older sister Marika was always popular and constantly had friends over at their house. A young Mayu watched the group from a distance. Mayu explains that her personality made it very difficult for her to speak to others, so she often felt isolated while her sister was surrounded by people. She describes her childhood hobby of hiding in a corner under a blanket with LED candles. During one of those times, a young Kanata discovered her hiding spot and asked what she was doing. Instead of making fun of her, young Kanata was genuinely impressed and told her that her candle-lit hideout was really cool. Mayu tells Kanata that he kept coming back to see her every time after that first meeting. Kanata feels bad and worries that he was just being an annoyance when she wanted to be alone. Kanata apologizes for being nosy back then, but Mayu smiles and asks him to accept a gift as an apology. She thinks to herself that she still can't tell him her true feelings. Mayu realizes that she might have fallen for him even back then because he was the only one who paid attention to her and her candle hobby. Kanata suddenly panics because he forgot to buy a present for Marika. Mayu suggests that buying a few king crabs would make her sister happy, sending Kanata into a frantic dash back toward the market. While trying to follow him, Mayu suddenly trips and cries out in pain. She tells Kanata that she sprained her ankle because she isn't used to wearing heels. Kanata immediately scoops Mayu up into his arms to carry her. Mayu is completely flustered and shocked by the sudden physical contact as Kanata holds her. Kanata places Mayu on a bench and tells her to wait there while he dashes off to buy something to cool down her injury. Sitting alone on the bench, Mayu watches him go and mutters to herself about how impressed she is with his quick initiative and how cool he is. Kanata returns from his errand, incredibly fast, shocking Mayu with his speed as he rushes back with a bag in hand. Kanata asks if Mayu is still in pain and applies a cooling patch to her sprained ankle. She mentions that she should be okay after a short rest. Kanata sits down on the bench next to Mayu, expressing his relief that she is feeling better. Mayu thanks Kanata again with a warm smile. A sticker on her love meter begins to peel away, revealing something hidden underneath. The pink heart sticker is torn off the meter, uncovering the true display behind it. The meter reveals hidden angels and a bird as Kanata realizes what was behind it. Sitting very close together on the bench, Mayu points out their proximity, causing Kanata to jump back and apologize in a panic. Kokona watches the pair from afar, horrified by the sight of Kanata flirting with the girl from before. Kokona is filled with rage, questioning who Mayu is and why Kanata is being so intimate with her. Kokona recalls Marika's intense training and blames her RGB curry for Kanata's sudden, assertive behavior toward other girls. Fuming with anger, Kokona calls Kanata a womanizer and suspects him of being a sugar daddy to a middle schooler. Overcome with jealousy, Kokona vows to tear Kanata to pieces. Later, Mayu sits at home with her candle while her older sister Marika returns. Marika is frightened to find live crabs crawling on the table as a surprise gift. The next morning at school, students exchange greetings as Kanata arrives for the day. Kanata reflects on all the terrible and painful experiences he has endured recently, feeling exhausted by the constant chaos. Kanata prays for a quiet and peaceful day ahead, but his hopes are interrupted when someone calls out his nickname. Kanata's hope for a quiet day is immediately ruined when Kokona confronts him, shouting for him to give her his face. Kanata barely recognizes Kokona in her retro outfit and notes that her meter has transformed into a rock star flower design. Kokona aggressively asks Kanata why he was acting so close with Mayu the day before. Kanata is confused by her sudden change in personality and speech. Seiyuki approaches and asks why they are standing in the doorway. She tells Kokona that her new look is pretty cute, causing Kokona to blush and thank her. Kokona realizes Kanata has used the distraction to run away, leaving her standing alone in the hallway. Kokona fumes over Kanata's escape, but she is suddenly interrupted by a teacher calling out to her. The teacher tells Kokona she is being far too rowdy and orders her to report to the office after homeroom. During lunch break, Seiyuki finds Kanata sitting by himself on the roof. Kanata greets Seiyuki while eating a plain slice of bread for his lunch. Seiyuki asks if that is really all he is eating, and Kanata explains that he is completely broke after his recent shopping trip. Kanata reveals he spent all his money on 2 king crabs, leaving Seiyuki shocked at his financial choices. Kanata admits he needs a part-time job, and Seiyuki suggests that he should come work at her family's place instead. Kokona appears on a ledge nearby, chewing on a leaf and acting like she is in a rebellious phase. Kokona mentions that her father's shop is hiring, but Kanata is just confused by her new way of speaking. Kanata whispers to Seiyuki that Kokona is acting strange, but Seiyuki thinks she is just being a typical gal. Kokona leaves to make a call, telling them she will be right back. Kokona pulls out a pink flip phone, causing Kanata to question what that device even is. Kokona shows off the decorated phone, claiming it has unlimited data. Kanata is shocked that the outdated device is still functional. Kokona tells Kanata he can start the job today and should follow her after school. Seiyuki wishes him luck while Kanata feels a wave of anxiety. After school, Kokona meets up with Kanata at the gate while holding her flip phone. Kanata asks what she was doing on the phone, and Kokona explains she was using a center inquiry to check for mail. They head toward the store while Kanata remains confused by her tech terms. Kokona takes a call from her father on her flip phone. Kanata watches her closely and asks if something is wrong. Kokona explains that she has been asked to run an errand and pick up a package before they head into the shop. Kanata wonders what kind of business he is getting into. Kokona cheerfully tells him to follow her as they head off to stop by the pickup location. They arrive at the station entrance. Kokona's phone rings again, and she informs Kanata that the seller is calling her. Kokona answers the call and learns that the driver became ill during the delivery. The luggage has been left in a locker at the station instead. They find the locker and Kokona identifies it as the right one. Kanata is suspicious of the secretive handover while Kokona thinks to herself that she is too lazy to explain everything to him. Kanata opens a large suitcase from the locker and discovers it is filled with small white packages. He breaks into a cold sweat, terrified by the suspicious contents. Kokona is completely nonchalant, explaining that this is their usual supplier. Kanata is horrified that this sort of thing is a regular occurrence. Kanata drags the suitcase behind Kokona as they walk through the city. He worries that he has accidentally accepted a dangerous and mysterious job. A loud beeping sound suddenly goes off, causing Kanata to scream in terror while Kokona reacts in surprise. Kokona apologizes and explains that the beeping sound was just her Tamagotchi indicating that it was hungry. Kanata is baffled by the name of the device. Kanata questions if anyone still uses such an old device, but Kokona gets defensive and tells him it is the latest model that just came out this year. Kokona adds that the device can talk using infrared technology, but Kanata has no idea what she is talking about. He wonders if her behavior is caused by the meter on his head and decides he needs to do something about it. Kanata becomes increasingly distressed and just wants to finish the suspicious job as fast as possible. Kokona suggests they take a short break at the park. She notices that Kanata looks completely pale and asks if he is doing okay. Kanata sits on a park bench and sighs, wishing he were already free from this situation. Kokona returns from an errand and tells him she bought some drinks. Kanata thanks her for the gesture. Kokona presents a bottle of burn-type amino supplement. Kanata is confused by the strange beverage and asks where she managed to find it. Kokona hands the drink over, promising it tastes good. Kanata remains skeptical, thinking the name sounds very unappealing. Kokona tells him to just trust her and drink it. Kanata takes a gulp and is surprised to find that it actually is tasty. Kokona gives him a happy smile and a peace sign. Kanata relaxes slightly while trying to identify the flavor, wondering if it is citrus or lychee. Kanata thanks her for the drink while they sit together. Their conversation is suddenly interrupted by someone calling out to them. Two police officers approach the pair to ask some questions. They mention that a nearby dog has escaped and ask if the two know anything. Kanata panics, convinced that he has been caught and his school life is over. Kanata starts crying and imagines himself locked in a prison cell. He despairs over how his life ended up this way. One of the officers notices Kanata's behavior and begins to reach out toward him. Kanata bursts into tears and tells the police that he is the one responsible. Kokona and the officers are left completely confused by his sudden confession. Kanata continues to confess, insisting that he is solely to blame and that Kokona had nothing to do with it. The police ask what the two of them are even doing. A man in a chef's uniform appears smoking a cigarette. Kokona greets him as her father, which leaves Kanata completely stunned. The father explains to the officers that he runs a shop nearby and that the kids are his part-time workers. The police spot the missing dog and leave to pursue it. The scene transitions to the Mikasa bakery, showing the store's sign and shelves filled with various types of bread. Inside the shop, the father examines a lump of white powder and comments on the high quality of the flour. Kanata is shocked to find out that the suspicious packages were just baking supplies. Kanata asks for clarification on the contents of the suitcase. Kokona asks him what he actually thought the packages were. Kokona and her father laugh at Kanata, asking if he really believed they were smuggling illegal goods. The father explains that they source their flour directly from specific farmers. He tells Kanata to relax while he goes to make some drinks. Kanata is left feeling physically and mentally exhausted. Kokona brings up how Kanata tried to turn himself in to the police. Kanata is deeply embarrassed and says he wants to crawl into a hole. Kokona leans in close to Kanata and asks if he was actually trying to protect her during the confrontation with the police. Kokona asks Kanata about the nature of his relationship with the girl from the previous day. Kanata explains that she was Marika's younger sister, which makes Kokona happy. Kokona returns to her usual Gyaru persona and tells Kanata he should have just said so from the start. Kanata notes that her status has returned to normal. Back at her home, Seiyuki lies on the couch and thinks about the idea of a part-time job for Kanata. Seiyuki's mother asks her from the kitchen if she wants to work a part-time job. Seiyuki is surprised to realize her mother is even in the room. Sayuki's mother mentions a coffee shop near their house where a part-timer suddenly quit. She notes that the cafe is run by an elderly couple. The mother explains that the couple struggles during peak hours and suggests Sayuki could help them for a short time. Sayuki worries about her housework and taking care of Mashiro even though she wants to help. Her mother offers to come home earlier than usual to handle the chores. With that issue resolved, Sayuki agrees to go check out the job. Her mother embraces her in a hug to thank her. Sayuki acts annoyed but accepts the affection as she prepares to leave. Sayuki arrives at the cafe and is greeted by the elderly owner holding a cat. The woman is happy to see her and welcomes her to the team. The owner hands Sayuki a bag containing a uniform and asks her to go change. Sayuki bows and tells the woman she is looking forward to working with her. The woman mentions she picked out a stylish outfit specifically for Sayuki. Sayuki thanks her while privately questioning what the owner considers stylish. Sayuki stands near the changing room feeling nervous. She wonders what the uniform looks like and hopes that it is nice. After putting on the clothes, Sayuki sprints out of the room and slams the door shut behind her. Sayuki confronts the manager about the outfit, which is a traditional heavily ruffled maid dress. She demands to know what on earth she is wearing. The manager claps her hands and insists the trendy uniform suits Sayuki perfectly. Sayuki is left sweating and confused by the woman's taste. The manager tells her new waitress to handle things until the shop closes. Sayuki is dazed but reluctantly agrees to start her shift. Sayuki is overwhelmed with embarrassment, blushing and sweating. She thinks to herself that this entire situation is incredibly bad. The cafe bell rings as someone enters the shop. Sayuki desperately hopes that no one she knows, especially the boys from her class, will walk in. Kanata, Kokona, and another classmate walk through the door and admire the cafe. Sayuki is horrified that they found her so quickly. The boys discuss finding the cafe through a TV food report while they settle into their seats. Sayuki hides nearby, frustrated that they chose a retro coffee shop instead of a fast food place. Sayuki approaches the table while holding a metal tray over her face to hide her identity. When Kanata asks to order, she tells him to go ahead without lowering the tray. Kanata becomes suspicious and wonders if the waitress is actually Sayuki. He stares at the tray and the cat perched on the woman's shoulder. Kokona pets a ginger cat and asks if it is the shop's mascot. Her classmate is also impressed by the animal. The cat trots across the floor while Kanata watches it intently. Kokona teases Kanata for being such a huge cat lover. Sayuki watches the group from a distance and notices them glancing in her direction. She panics, wondering if they have already figured out who she is. The cat returns to the table and Kanata and Kokona find it adorable. Sayuki continues to hide her face behind her tray while sweating nervously. Kokona comments on how cute the maid uniforms are. The other boy agrees, noting that the outfits look very neat and stylish. Kanata starts to say something to his friend but stops himself. He sweats as he asks if the other boy noticed anything about the waitress. Kanata decides it is better to keep Sayuki's identity a secret for now. He tells his friend it was nothing while Sayuki continues to watch them from the side. Kokona imagines herself in a more modern idol-style maid outfit. The boys discuss how a different style might suit her or the shop better. Kanata admits he might like the idol-type maid outfits as well. He then notices a cat nearby that looks familiar. A cat with a symbol on its head seems to have a sudden idea. Kanata wonders if the animal is actually nodding along to their conversation. The cat suddenly bolts away from the table at high speed. Kanata is caught off guard and shouts out, wondering where it is going. A bright flash of light suddenly fills the room. Kanata is completely shocked by the sudden occurrence. The flash of light fades, leaving Sayuki sitting on the floor in a new frilly maid outfit complete with cat ears. Sayuki groans in pain as Kanata rushes over, immediately recognizing her voice. Sayuki is horrified by the sudden change in her clothes and panics. Kanata is stunned by the situation, as Sayuki quickly hides behind her metal tray again and uses a high-pitched voice to claim she is fine. The ginger cat peeks out from behind Sayuki while Kanata offers her a hand. He asks if she is hurt while looking away to respect her privacy, and Sayuki quietly thanks him. The cat gives a literal thumbs up as it glows with a magical aura. Kanata realizes that the animal was the one responsible for magically changing Sayuki's clothes. Kanata returns to the booth where Kokona and their classmate are waiting. They welcome him back and ask him what the commotion was about. Kanata explains that the waitress simply tripped and fell, but he is relieved she was not injured. Kokona pulls him into a tight hug, calling him cool for being so quick to help someone in need. The group looks up as a voice thanks them for waiting. Seiyuki has returned to deliver their meals to the table. A set of Hamburg steak and Neapolitan spaghetti is placed on the table. The meal is presented beautifully and looks exactly like the famous set from the TV report. The trio is thrilled by the food, and Kanata pulls out his phone to snap a picture. They recognize the dish as the one the TV celebrity was eating earlier. Their classmate prepares his chopsticks to start eating the meal. He is impressed by the high quality of the food's presentation. Seiyuki fumes, internally wishing the boys would just eat their food and leave as quickly as possible. Kanata notices that their classmate's face has started to look remarkably similar to the man from the TV drama. Seiyuki remains stuck in the embarrassing cat ear outfit as the manager comments on how cute she looks. Seiyuki tries to hide her face, unsure of how the transformation even happened. The manager claps her hands in delight and encourages Seiyuki to keep working hard in the outfit until the shop closes. Seiyuki realizes with dread that she won't be allowed to change back into her previous uniform. After the shift is over, Kanata walks home under the evening sky. He spots Seiyuki and waves to her, thanking her for all the hard work she did at the cafe. Seiyuki is back in her school jacket and breaks down in tears of embarrassment. She is mortified that Kanata confirmed he knew it was her all along and saw her in the revealing maid outfit. Kanata tries to console Seiyuki by telling her the outfit didn't look bad. Seiyuki tearfully reminds him that he was intentionally looking away from her at the time. Kanata looks away and apologizes. He admits to himself that she looked cute and thinks about her shoulder. Seiyuki is surprised by his sudden change in tone. Seiyuki blushes and touches her face. She is left wondering about the meaning behind Kanata's words. Kanata offers to walk Seiyuki home since it is getting dark. He explains that he sent Kokona and the others home early because he realized Seiyuki didn't want to be seen in her uniform. Seiyuki looks away thoughtfully as they walk. She reflects on how she originally viewed Kanata as nothing more than an unremarkable background character. Seiyuki steals a glance at Kanata from the side. He suddenly mentions a kitty. Seiyuki asks Kanata if he has been focusing on her very intently lately. Kanata gets flustered and tries to deny it while acting nervous. Kanata realizes he can't admit that he is actually obsessed with the magical cat sitting on Seiyuki's shoulder. The cat gives a mischievous grin as it hitches a ride on her backpack. A girl wearing glasses collapses onto her desk, feeling completely drained by her schoolwork. She complains about being sick of studying for exams and decides she needs to find a way to replenish her energy quickly. Rika gets a sudden jolt of excitement, declaring that she desperately needs a dose of romantic drama from her favorite juniors. Kanata sits at his desk looking at his midterm results, already expecting that his grades took a major hit. He stares at his class, ranking in absolute horror, unable to believe how far down the list he has fallen. Marika greets him cheerfully, but stops dead when she sees Kanata's soul literally leaving his body from the shock. He laments that his rank is so low it is faster to count from the bottom up, leaving Marika stunned by his academic failure. Marika asks how a middle-rank student failed so hard, and Kanata admits he has been spending all his time working at the bakery. He confesses with a dreamy smile that the delicious bread they serve for staff meals totally distracted him from his studies. Kanata reveals he has been working 6 days a week, which Marika immediately identifies as a massive case of overdoing it. While Kanata panics about his grades, Marika offers to become his tutor but is cut off by a booming voice from the window. The student council president slides the window open with a flourish, scaring the life out of Kanata as she invades the classroom. Rika claims her senses told her Kanata was in trouble, ignoring the crowd of students who are amazed by her sudden arrival. Rika mentions a second helper, Hinami, whose face is barely visible because she is too short to reach the window. Kanata eagerly accepts the help of the top-ranked student in the school while Marika watches the two of them with clear jealousy. Marika sinks into a deep pout, feeling completely defeated by the sudden entrance of the high-ranking seniors. Rika tells them to meet in the library, secretly hoping this study session will force Kanata and Marika into a romantic situation. Kitami-kun walks into the library and announces himself. The girl with glasses is startled to see him standing there. She welcomes Kanata-kun and smiles. He notices that she seems to have a different aura about her than usual. They sit down to study. She points out a formula to use, and Kitami-kun begins to grasp the lesson. He feels relieved that she is acting normal, but a loud chime goes off as a game event is triggered. He screams in surprise. Something slides across the table as she calls out to him. Kitami-kun grows nervous about what is coming next. She crunches on a sweet potato chip and tells him he has one on him. He realizes she's trying to pull off an outdated romantic trope. Kitami-kun shouts about the sudden shift in art style while a meter nearby starts to fill up. She looks at him with confusion. He holds his head in his hands and worries that his life is turning into a shoujo manga. He admits to himself that the new art style makes her look like a genuine heroine. Two girls hide behind the bookshelves and monitor the situation on their phones. They decide to move on to the next part of their plan. Her phone dings with a message. She reads it and gives a determined thumbs up to her secret accomplices. She calls out to Kitami-kun again while staring at her phone. He asks her what is wrong now. She poses elegantly and tells him she would be happy to fail her classes just to spend another year with him. He is speechless. Kitami-kun suggests that repeating a year is a bad idea. She awkwardly agrees and secretly checks her phone to see why his reaction was so dull. He asks her why she is looking at her phone so much. She gets defensive and insists that nothing is going on. Kitami-kun suggests they study some other time if she is busy. Mao quickly panics and tries to explain that isn't the case at all. Kitami-kun feels like something is very wrong with the current situation. He wonders if Hinami-senpai and the others are the ones responsible while the two girls watch from behind the books. Kitami-kun wonders what everyone is planning. Suddenly, a shadow looms over Hinami and Mao as they are caught spying behind the shelves. Marika-chan grabs both girls by the shoulders and asks them what they think they are doing. The two girls are paralyzed with fear. Marika accuses them of bullying Kanata-kun again. They both desperately wave their hands and claim that they aren't doing anything of the sort. Marika ignores their pleas and drags them toward the exit, promising to show them true fear. The two girls scramble on the floor as they are hauled away. Kitami-kun is shaken by how scary Marika-chan can be. Nearby, Mao stares at her silent phone and realizes she has been abandoned by her team. Kitami-kun leans on his hand and notes that the seniors have finally left. He asks Mao what she was trying to pull this time. Mao looks at her phone and stammers through an explanation. Kitami says he only came because he expected a tutoring session and offers to leave, but Mao begs him to wait. Mao stands in the middle of the library and shouts a formal apology to him. Kitami watches her with a look of pure confusion. Kitami asks if she can at least explain the reason for everything that has happened. Mao looks down and starts to recount her side of the story. Mao reflects on how she just wanted to support Kitami-kun's love life. Her previous schemes flash through her mind, including wearing sunglasses and watching him struggle through gym class. Mao admits that her plans never seem to go anywhere. She explains that since she is good at studying, she thought she could finally be useful to him. Kitami stares at her in disbelief. Mao claims she felt a responsibility to help him as his senior and that the others wanted to assist as well. Kitami tells her bluntly that she picked the wrong people for the job. Mao kneels on the floor and confesses that studying is her only real strength. She says she wouldn't even be the student council president if it weren't for her friend's support. Mao bursts into tears and admits that she only wanted to be helpful to Kitami-kun and Chito-san. Kitami-kun reaches out and offers her a handkerchief to dry her eyes. Mao thanks him while she wipes her face. He asks if it was that obvious that he liked Marika-chan. Kitami-kun remembers back to when they first met and realizes he was shouting about his interest in Chito-san. Mao wonders to herself if she is really that easy for others to read. Kitami-kun tells the prez that he finally understands her situation and what she was trying to do. He thanks her for everything she did for him, but he has something important to add. Kitami-kun blushes and declares that he wants to handle his own romance from now on because he really wants to make it a reality. Mao smiles and says she understands. They shake hands as Mao promises to stop interfering without cause and just watch from the sidelines. Kitami-kun says he looks forward to that. Mao smiles warmly at him, feeling a sense of relief now that they have come to an understanding. Kitami-kun returns the smile, glad that the misunderstanding is finally over. Hinami and her friend are completely pale and shaken after their encounter with Marika. Marika-chan walks away and brushes her hands off while the two girls float behind her like ghosts. She sighs about how much of a handful they both are. She stops in the hallway and wonders how things are going with Kanata-kun inside the library. Kitami-kun hears someone approaching and looks toward the door. Marika-chan appears in the shadows and he calls out her name in surprise. Marika-chan suddenly sprints into the room while crying and yelling. She calls him a thoughtless slice-of-life terrorist, leaving Kitami-kun totally shocked and shouting her name. Marika sprints away while sobbing and hurling insults. A recap notes that she completely misunderstood Kanata's confession in the previous chapter. Kanata reaches out in desperation and pleads for Marika to stop and wait for him. Marika vanishes into the distance at high speed, leaving a bewildered Kanata behind. Kanata hunches over and pants for breath, realizing he can't keep up with her superior athletic conditioning. Kanata sweats nervously as he tries to decipher the bizarre and overly specific insult she screamed at him. Marika wails loudly in her room, letting out all her frustration and sadness. Marika obsesses over her numerous rivals while her younger brother yells at her to be quiet from the stairs. She despairs over what her next move should be. The following day, Marika trudges through the school hallway looking completely drained and dejected. Kanata offers a cheerful morning greeting, but Marika barely acknowledges him and keeps walking. Kanata waves as she passes, leaving him to shrug at her cold behavior while he wonders what to do. Marika slams her hand on her desk and curses her inability to be honest with her own feelings. Her classmate, Yua Kiyosato, notices her sour mood and asks her what is wrong. Yua correctly guesses that Marika is worried about Kitami-kun hitting the nail right on the head. Yua asks if she was wrong to assume they liked each other, and Marika sadly admits that she thought they had something special as well. Marika worries that Kanata is becoming afraid of her because of the love meter she uses. Kanata looks nervous and unsure as he faces her. Yua gets angry and tells Marika that she is taking too long to make a move. She yells at her friend to just ask him out and be assertive. Marika feels stung by the harsh truth of her friend's words. Marika resolves to be more confident and announces she will ask Kanata out for a date after school. Yua is happy to see her friend taking charge and wishes her luck. Yua mentions how long it took for her to finally speak to someone since the series started. Marika is left confused by her friend's strange talk about chapters and series length. Kanata sighs as he looks out at the school building and thinks about the long day. Kanata starts packing his bag and feels down because Marika avoided him all day. He is suddenly surprised when he hears her calling his name. Marika stands there blushing intensely and shaking with nerves. She asks if he wants to go on a date with her on their way home, leaving Kanata completely shocked. Kanata realizes that this is his best chance to finally make things right between them. Kanata happily accepts the invitation and says they should go. Marika is thrilled and celebrates his positive response. Both of them clench their fists and feel determined to make the date a success despite their nerves. They reach a park and Kanata notes that they have not been here in a long time. Kanata thinks about the memories he has of this park and mentions meeting Mashiro here recently. He asks Marika for her thoughts on the place. Marika is sweating buckets and looks totally overwhelmed by the situation. Kanata gets worried when he sees how much she is struggling. Marika panics and hopes that Kanata does not start to hate her. Kanata notices her state and suggests they sit on a nearby bench for a rest. Marika suddenly runs off at full speed to go find some drinks. She tells Kanata to wait for her while he watches her disappear in shock. Marika crouches down by a vending machine and holds her head in shame. She feels a deep sense of doom after her latest social blunder. Marika cries and wonders why she keeps running away from important moments. A little girl approaches her and asks if she is feeling all right or if her stomach hurts. Marika gently pats the little girl on the head and tells her she is fine. She looks at the child and wonders if they have met somewhere before. The little girl suddenly wraps Marika in a tight hug. Marika is taken aback by the sudden show of affection and asks what is going on. The girl explains that Marika looked like she was about to cry. She says that getting a hug always makes her feel better. She tells Marika that her big sister used to give her long hugs whenever she was sad. Marika smiles warmly and thanks the girl for the comfort. Marika waves goodbye to the little girl and feels a new sense of determination. She walks away while trying to remember where she has seen that face before. Kanata sits alone on a bench and waits for Marika to return. He worries about whether she is actually doing okay after running off. Kanata looks up as Marika approaches him. He asks her how she is feeling after her sudden departure. Marika stands before him with a red face holding 2 bottles. She tells him that something very strange just happened to her. She hands one of the drinks to Kanata and suggests they both take a moment to relax. Kanata accepts the bottle and thanks her. Kanata takes a sip of his drink and asks if she needs help opening hers. Marika insists she is perfectly fine and tries to twist the cap off herself. The bottle suddenly erupts and sprays water directly into Marika's face. Kanata shouts in surprise as he watches her get drenched. Marika stands there completely soaked and bursts into tears. She laments that absolutely nothing is going her way today. Kanata remembers that she has been a total crybaby ever since they were children. He reflects on how he always felt a strong need to grow up and protect her. Kanata-kun uses a towel to softly dry Marika-chan's face. She is caught off guard and calls out his name in surprise as he wipes the water away. Kanata-kun tries to find his words as he apologizes for yesterday. He stammers but manages to swear that he only has eyes for her and her alone. Marika-chan starts crying happy tears after hearing his blunt statement. Kanata-kun panics and worries that he is being gross, but she tells him she is just so happy to know how he feels. The two sit side by side on the bench at sunset. Kanata-kun apologizes again and offers to his strawberry milk, which she gratefully accepts. Marika-chan smiles and tells Kanata-kun that she looks forward to seeing him again. He cheers up and tells her that he feels the same way. Kanata-kun feels a wave of relief washing over him. He believes his feelings finally reached her and is glad that they have made up. Marika-chan is internally screaming as she realizes that he definitely just confessed to her. She panics because her own feelings didn't seem to get across to him at all. At dawn the next day, Marika-chan waves to Kanata-kun and asks if they can walk together. He asks if she was waiting for him, and she immediately latches onto his arm with a tight hug. Kanata-kun is flustered by the sudden closeness as she sparkles with joy. She asks him if this is fine, and he struggles to keep his composure while she leans in. Kanata-kun admits he is happy, but tells her she is gripping him way too hard. Nearby students start to notice them and chatter about whether that girl is actually Chito-san. A girl with short hair and earrings watches the pair from a distance with a neutral but intense stare.